Item number 5, public comments on items not on the agenda but under the purview of this committee, and I have a few speakers that have requested to speak. First one is Mr. Bob Jolly. You have 3 minutes, sir.
Good morning. I've provided a letter to each of the board members, and I'm going to refer to that letter. I don't have time to read the whole letter, but I'd like to hit the highlights in the boldface. What I'm speaking today is to make formal number 1 there on the letter, request for the Sierra Northern Mendocino Railways to reroute the Sunburst rail bikes west of Santa Paula through flower fields and avocado groves, stopping traffic only on isolated farm roads and small city streets, not across Highway 126, which is a majorly busy thoroughfare. And in doing that, they stop traffic for several times for 90-second periods, delaying potential emergency vehicles and having the potential to create traffic accidents. Number 2 on my letter there, make a formal request of Sierra Northern Railway to temporarily move the highly graffitied third-party stored rail cars on Old Telegraph Road to a less public location west, where the railroad tracks run through orchards on both sides and not along well-traveled public roads facing several homes. It says further in that little paragraph that the Ventura County Municipal Code as well as the Sierra Northern Agreement stipulate that graffiti be removed so that it's less offensive and less of a public nuisance for tagging crews or for people wanting to climb around on the rail cars. I have a picture of that later on in the pamphlet there. Number 3, ask the board for a full and transparent financial accounting of the Santa Paula Branch Line, Sierra Northern, and VCTC agreement. We realize that the railroad is making considerable amount of money by storing the rail cars, but as you see further down the page, we believe that VCTC is going to incur some serious costs for supervising rail bridge repair, which may negate any income that VCTC is realizing from this agreement. And there's also additional costs to the county on account of the sheriff having to increase their patrolling of the graffiti-covered rail car area. And further down the page, number 4, we asked the VCTC board to modify current practices and hold a open forum for further public comment on these matters at the November or December VCTC board meeting, so that county leaders and board members can express and share their concerns, if they have any, with the public on how comfortable they are with continuing this year with the VCTC agreement for 35 years. We're concerned, again, with the unsafe, unlimited stopping of traffic on State Highway 126, the parking of these graffiti-covered rail cars in an agricultural exclusive zone.
Mr. Jolly, I apologize, but I'm going to ask you to wrap up your comments, please.
And I have copies of the municipal code and the branch line agreement, which say that graffiti must be abated. I have and also an enclosure showing how a neighbor who parked a dump truck on his property in the AE zone had to move it. The county pretty much came unglued when a single dump truck was parked in the AE zone.
Mr. Jolly.
There are also some pictures.
Mr. Jolly.
I'd like to
your time is concluded, sir. Thank you very much.
Show this one of the trash truck that busted through the rail crossing, and here's the people on the rail bikes. There's also pictures of
Mr. Jolly,
graffiti-covered
this will
rail
be the last
cars.
time I say this, and I'm going to turn the microphone off.
Okay,
Your time is
you can
finished.
turn the
Thank you.
microphone off, but I think that in our sesquicentennial year, which we're trying to celebrate the beauty of our county, we can do better than parking those crappy-looking rail cars right in view of Fillmore residents.
Amy Garola, please.
Good morning, Commissioners. Thank you for giving me your time. I last spoke to this body in March of this year. because of the situation with the rail cars that are parked in our neighborhood, there are hundreds of dwellings there that are affected by these graffitied rail cars. At that time, I think there were about 40. Now there had been 100. Now there's about 85. We were given assurance in June that the one-year contract that Sierra Northern has with CMEX, which expires, I think, around January of this year, February of next year, would not be renewed, and that they would not take any other contracts for any kind of rail car storage in our area. I asked for a commitment, a recommitment of that at the August 15th meeting with Sierra Northern, and I was not able to get an assurance from them. So I'm asking this body to please hold them to their commitment that I received in an email from Mr. Erickson in June, that they be held to that commitment, that this blight of these rail cars that we will have been dealt with for a year at that time does not continue. So I'm just asking that, please, of all of you in this body. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker is Tony Gitt, please.
Good morning. My name is Tony Gitt, and I'm a resident of the Westlake Village portion of Thousand Oaks. I'm also a member of the Ventura County Area Agency on Aging Advisory Council and chair of its Transportation Subcommittee. In October of 2022, the County of Ventura passed the Ventura County Master Plan for Aging, which flows down planning from the State Master Plan for Aging for seniors and disabled people. Among the initiatives in the plan, there are specific initiatives related to transportation, to include supporting efforts to establish a coordinated transportation system in Ventura County, establishing person-centered MOUs between transit districts to allow paratransit to cross transit district lines to meet rider needs, supporting door-through-door transportation options, and supporting the adoption of set fares and age limits for older adults across transit providers. As you know, older adults are the fastest growing segment of Ventura County, and we now make up more than 25% of the population. As many of us grow older and develop disabilities, that makes driving impossible. We are completely dependent on a system that currently doesn't work for us. I'm thrilled to see that the Transit Integration and Efficiency Study recommends 3 models that all lead to the consolidation of transit providers. Demand for paratransit is only going to increase, and as the study shows, there is a clear opportunity for efficiencies and improved rider experience. However, I'm not in support of Alternative 1, as it does not do enough and would not lead to a truly seamless, coordinated system. Alternative 2 is better, and it is the most feasible for change without jeopardizing state and federal funding. But we don't have 10 years to wait to fix the system. Whatever your board decisions are on behalf of older adults and people with disability that currently use the system or may need to use it in the near future, I would urge you to consider Alternative 2 with the accelerated timeline. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And for people that made public comments, we're unable to engage in a discussion at this time, but staff will reach out as appropriate to each of you. And I have no other requests to speak in public comments, so that will take us to item number 6, Caltrans Report, Director Roberts.
Thank you very much, Chair McDonald, Commissioners, and Director Erickson. In addition to my monthly report, I just wanted to give a quick status update on our US 101 emergency project. And that location is at the California Street overcrossing. Next slide, please. So here we have a situation where, the next slide, there's been a higher than normal amount of precipitation from our storms, and that has also just exacerbated at this location where there's normally high groundwater. When we initially built the freeway, we built in a pump and a drainage system to basically pull the water away from the roadway. But because of the storms that we had earlier in the year, we're seeing that there's been a failure of the pump and just a clogging of the drainage system that's caused the groundwater to just kind of swell onto the roadway. Next slide, please. So here you can see definite shots, other shots of where the northbound and the shoulder lanes have the water seeping through. Next slide, please. And so since we discovered this water, we have had the lane closed because there's been a couple of incidents due to the wet roadway, and as an added layer of protection, we've closed the number 1 lane on EOS 101 at this location. And I think last night or the night before, the contractor has since set in some K-rail to continue on with the emergency work. Next slide, please. So here's just a visual of the clog outlet. As you can see, there's a lot of sediment that just needs to be completely cleared. That's getting in the way of us being able to get the water to drain the water away from the roadway. Next slide. And so this is a photo of a pump that is actually on the pump vault with water, and it's running. And so as you can see, the pump is not working as it's supposed to, so water is being retained in our system. Next slide. So the work that we have that's going under K-rail, when we set the K-rail to allow for the contractor to conduct the work safely at that condition, at that location, and what we're doing is basically clearing the under drain and actually installing new under drain, and as well as a V-ditch drainage system to allow to kind of facilitate future water movement into the drain. And so all of this is happening during live traffic. We definitely don't want to shut down the freeway, so closing the number 1 lane, setting the K-rail helps protect our workers, but also allows for traffic to continue. So we're just asking at this time for the public's patience as they travel through this area, and we're expecting, weather permitting, for this work to be completed by the end of the year. However, if we are facing another wet season, we can anticipate some delays. But right now, the goal is to wrap this up by the end of this calendar year, and then we'll continue to keep the City of Ventura updated on the project progress.
Thank you very much. Do commissioners have any questions or comments for Director Roberts? No? Director Johnson?
Thank you. I wanted to thank Commissioner Roberts because this has been a hot topic in Ventura, and I had a couple meet and greets this week, and she was very kind to reach out to me directly and give those updates so I could give them to people even before today. So I really appreciate the partnership. Thank you.
Thank you.
Excellent. Any other comments? No? Thank you. Takes us to item number 7, Commissioners and Executive Director reports. Do commissioners have any VCTC business they would like to report out on? No? Mr. Erickson, it's your turn.
Thank you, Chair McDonald. Commissioners, I have an Executive Director's report, which you have in front of you. I just wanted to highlight a few items on there as we have a lot of I think, exciting items on the agenda today and a pretty full meeting. First, I just wanted to officially welcome Gloria Roberts, even though she was at our meeting last time. Well, all of you as commissioners are appointed by your respective cities or you serve as board of supervisors. When the District 7 Caltrans director becomes part of a commission, the governor's office actually has to formally go through that process, and I'm happy to report that that's all done, and she's officially our ex officio District 7 member. So, on the first item on the report is just an announcement of our Access for All program. You might be familiar with this as we have presented it to the commission a few times, and I read into the record a comment from Danny Anderson from the county about this. This program is made possible by a 10-cent fee on TNCs, or Transportation Network Companies, Uber and Lyft around the state. And it creates some money for each county. It's not a ton of money, but we are happy to start with this program, which is going to allow on-demand, wheelchair-accessible transportation 24 hours a day, 7 days a week in Ventura County. It's a pilot program, but I think it's a good step forward, the incremental steps we're making to improve senior and disabled transit throughout the county. We're going to talk about that later in the meeting, so I don't want to go too far into that, but I just wanted to bring that to your attention, and again, thank Danny for her patience in working with us to improve our system. I attended, along with several commissioners, the Mobility 21 Annual Conference at the Disneyland Hotel last Friday. Vice Chair Levere, who couldn't be here today, but he served on the chairs panel and I think represented VCTC very well, along with the chairs of the other transportation commissions to our south. Had many comments from other commissioners and other staff of how well he did there. But also in attendance were several other commissioners, Commissioner Engler, White, Chavez, and Crosswhite, as well as VCTC staff. And I think this conference is important for a lot of reasons, but I think one of the most important reasons for this conference is that it lets the Southern California region speak with one voice in Washington and also in Sacramento. And when you look at how big the SCAG region is and how many people it represents and the importance of the transportation issues, it helps us, I think, try to achieve parity. We're still a donor state at the federal level. We'll probably never fix that. Hopefully we will. But it helps us in our transportation and transit advocacy. And also the new Speaker of the House, Robert Rivas, presented there, and I'm excited about what he has to say about transportation and transit, and I hope it'll reflect back to our local communities and to our county. And then finally, I just wanted to note that I've been trying to make it to every city on a regular basis, but I was fortunate enough to go to Ojai last week with Mayor Pro Tem Sousa Francina, Peter DeHaan, and myself. And I like to think we might have been helpful in their ATP, in preserving their ATP bicycle lane project funding. Like a lot of projects, it's had some changes, the scope's been modified, but it is, I think, still a very good project that VCTC has been helping shepherd along in the process. And I think it's finally just a reflection of how when VCTC works best, we work in partnership with all our city members, with the county, with Caltrans, with all the agencies that we partner with. So with that, unless there's any questions, I'll go back to the main agenda, Chair.
Any questions or comments from Mr. Erickson? Commissioner Crosswhite.
I have a question. I had a question about the access for all. Do you want me to ask that? I don't want to have to pull it from the consent calendar, but can I ask that now, or do I need to wait and ask it when we get to the consent calendar?
We'll get to consent calendar, and you can make comments then. You don't have to pull it to do it.
Right.
Perfect. Any other comments for Mr. Erickson? No? Those of you that may not know Danny, Danny, would you wave your hand so people can see who you are? Wonderful person to work with. I worked with her prior to being with the county. She was with Southern California Edison, just a fantastic person to work with. And if you haven't had a chance to talk with her, I would encourage you, if you have a few moments, just stop by and say hi. So, Danny, thank you for all your efforts. Okay, that takes us to item number 8, additions or revisions to the agenda. Are there any additions or revisions other than what we've already announced?
No further additions or revisions, Mr. Chair.
Okay, takes us to item number 9, consent calendar. If any commissioners wish to make comments about a particular item, we can make comments without pulling it, or if you want to pull it for discussion, we can also pull it. It's up to you. Commissioner Crosswhite?
I just had a couple of questions on, what number was that? 9F for the access for all. How are we letting people know that that service is available? And then how will we address whether or not it's been successful, particularly in the countywide, right? Because there's the one that's integrating with Gold Coast, which is
Sure.
it's more of a contained, and they already have ways that they're assessing their service.
You know,
But what
I'll take
about
an
the
initial stab at that, and Heather, if I miss anything, please jump in. But, so this is a pilot program. It's a brand-new program, and we have been promoting it through our social media channels, working with our consultant, and also working really with the operators and the other, other groups. Now, again, it's a pilot, and we also, BTS, the company that's doing it, has a history in the county, so there's an existing base that they're working with. But we are going to promote it as broadly as we can, and it will be an ongoing effort. And as you noted, Commissioner Crosswhite, this was, the funding went to 2 projects. Another exciting project that Gold Coast is doing but that's only in South Oxnard. And this one is countywide. And I think that's one of the reasons why we're excited about this, because we're not the only ones grappling with finding new and better ways to provide this type of service in counties. So we're excited about it and look forward to reporting back to you soon.
Yeah, I'll just add, we're doing a bit of a soft launch, so we haven't, gone out with a huge push for it because it's a countywide program, and so the demand, we're uncertain, and you mentioned reporting, and that's part of the program is to see what the demand is for the county, and if we can meet it with this particular program. The funds, there's not a lot of funds, it's a fair subsidy program, and so the cost of the service for consumers is comparable to Uber and Lyft. It's not traditional paratransit, which is more heavily subsidized. So we are sort of working with Danny Anderson. We're thankful that she's actually working with us to kind of get the word out, but it's a quieter sort of launch so far, but we intend to kind of push it even more.
Good. Any other commissioners have any other questions or comments about info consent? Yes, sir. Commissioner Chavez.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to follow up with the last item. I think it's 9J with the complaint for our legal counsel, if there's an update in regards to the letter that was sent to Roadrunner.
There is actually, the letter that was sent to Roadrunner, we received confirmation from the insurance company that they've accepted the tender on behalf of Roadrunner, so they will be handling resolution of that claim.
Okay, I appreciate it. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, if there are no other comments or questions, a motion would be in order for the entire info consent. Okay, Commissioner Engler, and then Commissioner Parvin is the second. And because of some of the nature of some of the items in there, I think I'm going to ask for a roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Broggie? Commissioner Chavez?
It's going to be aye for all items except 9A with an abstention, as I wasn't present for that meeting. Thank you.
Commissioner Crosswhite?
Yes.
Commissioner Enegren?
Yes.
Commissioner Engler?
Yes.
Commissioner Francina?
Yes, I don't think I was present in September either for 9A.
Thank you. Commissioner Gorell?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Judge?
Yes.
Commissioner Long? Commissioner Lopez?
Yes.
Commissioner McQueen-Lejeune? Commissioner Parvin?
Yes.
And Chair McDonald.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. That takes us to our discussion calendar. The next item is item number 10, approval of fiscal year 2023-24 program of projects and public hearings. The recommended action is open a public hearing and receive testimony, and then approve the program of projects, POP, for federal transit operating, planning, and capital assistance for fiscal year 2023-2024 in attachment A. And we'll receive information from Heather Miller, and then we'll open the public hearing. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning, Commissioners. Heather Miller, Programming Manager with VCTC. Item number 10, as the Chair described, seeks the Commission's approval of this year's program of projects for federal transit operating, planning, and capital assistance for the 2023-2024 fiscal year. VCTC, as a regional transportation planning agency and designated recipient of federal transit funds for Ventura County, is required to hold this public hearing and adopt a yearly program of projects. The program of projects, or what we call the POP, lists the transit projects to be funded with federal funds in each of the 4 urban areas within Ventura County, and that includes Oxnard, Ventura, Thousand Oaks, Moore Park, Simi Valley, and Camarillo. So in order to prepare the 2024 POP, VCTC staff provides Ventura County transit operators, the cities within the county, and Gold Coast Transit District as well, the estimated federal transit apportionments, or what we call formula funds, These revenues provide the target amount of funding for each operator's transit program and include the Section 5307 and 5339 FTA funds. In turn, the agencies provide VCTC with the specifics of their programs, including the projects and the costs using these funds in the 23-24 fiscal year. Additionally, the POP includes what we call discretionary or competitive grant funds awarded through a competitive process, and that includes second-year funding for our recent, not so recent, actually a couple of years now, the second year of the 5310, 5307 JARC call for projects, and also the congestion mitigation and air quality improvement funds, or what we call CMAQ funds, and these are obligated in the coming year as well, are included in this this big table of projects. So staff recommends adoption of the 2024 program of projects. It's included in attachment A of your agenda item, and that concludes my remarks. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. What I'm going to do is open the public hearing and receive testimony from anyone that wishes to provide it at this point. Anyone that would like to provide testimony, please step forward, provide your testimony, and fill out a speaker card for us. I'm not seeing a mad rush to the podium, so we will move to close the public hearing. Does Commissioner, or do the commissioners have any questions for our staff? No? Okay. Commissioner Crosswhite.
I'll ask one real quick question. Do we have any concern if the government were to shut down? Would that impact these programs at all?
Heather, if you don't mind, I'll take this one, sorry. So, not immediately for these programs, and unlike in some past shutdowns, at least the immediate funding for these FTA and these funded programs seems to be okay. However, that is part of the reason that VCTC has an STA fund balance that we carry in the event that we do need to help cities or the county with projects where we would need that. So I think that's just good kind of fiscal stewardship on our part, and I appreciate the commission helping us, keep that available funding if we need it. So, thanks.
Any other comments for staff? Seeing none, a motion would be in order.
Chavez moves.
I'm sorry, was Commissioner Engler or not Engler? Henegren. Did you do the motion?
I went for it, but.
Oh,
Sorry,
oh, Chavez?
I just yelled it out. Sorry, Chair.
That's okay.
I don't know how to
Second by
control
Commissioner
myself.
Judge. Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Any abstentions? That motion carries. Thank you all very much. Takes us to item number 11, Santa Paula Branch Line monthly updates for September 2023. And the recommendation is to receive and file a report of the Santa Paula Branch Line updates for the month of September. And Ms. Fagan.
Good morning, Chair McDonald and members of the commission. For the record, my name is Amanda Fagan, and I serve as the Director of Planning and Sustainability here at VCTC. Our most recent verbal update to the commission on this topic took place in June, with monthly written updates provided in July and September. So with my remarks this morning, I'll be focusing on those most recent activities that occurred during the month of September. The commission adopted a 5-year strategic plan in May of this year. The plan includes 3 strategies related to the Santa Paula Branch Line, which guide our actions and priorities, including update the Santa Paula Branch Line Trail Master Plan, validate trail alignment, connections, and amenities, and update existing conditions to facilitate trail completion with stakeholder engagement. Partner with Sierra Northern Railway, corridor cities, and the county to operate, maintain, and improve the Santa Paula Branch Line Railroad and right-of-way corridor as a county-wide community asset, ensuring outreach to stakeholders in the process, and continue to address encroachment into the Santa Paula branch line right-of-way through leasing activities to ensure safety of operations and protection of the asset and infrastructure. So again, we use these strategies and goals from our strategic plan to guide our activities within this program. Since beginning operations, Sierra Northern conducts periodic and regular rail inspections, makes improvements to the condition of the signals and railroad tracks, conducts weed abatement and other right-of-way maintenance activities, and conducts regular rail operations on the branch line. VCTC staff and Sierra Northern representatives continue to meet virtually on a regular basis to coordinate activities. In the fiscal year 2022-2023, which ended in June, Sierra Northern replaced over 800 railroad ties and 500 tons of ballast and continued to develop a new base of freight operations. Freight rail service, I'll remind, reduces truck traffic at a rate of 4 trucks for every rail car and provides an opportunity to lower greenhouse gas emissions associated with goods movement. Also in fiscal year 2022-2023, Sierra Northern expended over $1.4 million in labor, equipment, materials, and services to maintain the Santa Paula branch line, with VCTC being responsible for reimbursing only $450,000 of that amount under the railroad lease, leveraging private investment in the branch line at a rate of 3-to-1. In March of this year, Mendocino Railway, a sister company to Sierra Northern, launched a rail bike service on the Santa Paula branch line. Guided tours depart from and return to the Santa Paula depot with a stop at Prancer's Farm. The rail bike tours operate much like an excursion train on a set schedule, mounted on railroad tracks and with guides at the front and the rear or caboose of the tour. Additional information on rail bike operations is included in a fact sheet that's available on our website. In response to concerns raised by agricultural neighbors near the line, rail bike operator Mendocino Railway has added flags to the backs of the rail bikes to increase visibility. This was at the suggestion of one of the agricultural operators near the line. They've also agreed to shift the scheduled tour start times to 1 hour later in the day, operating at 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. to allow for additional time for agricultural operations such as spraying in the mornings. And they've also inserted language from the Ventura County Right to Farm Ordinance into their guest waiver at the request of the Farm Bureau. In recognition of Rail Safety Week, September 18th through the 24th, VCTC and Sierra Northern Railway shared messages from Operation Lifesaver through social media and with corridor cities and community partners. On September 12th, Santa Paula branch line tenant Parallel Systems, a company founded to create autonomous battery electric rail vehicles, publicly introduced its second-generation rail vehicles, with plans to integrate the system into the existing rail network alongside conventional freight trains. Parallel is conducting critical testing to verify the system's ability to use the general rail network and is developing tools and software to allow rail customers to operate parallel vehicles from their existing dispatching and train control systems. Parallel operates on a disconnected segment of rail east of Fillmore. At this time, approximately 84 rail cars are stored on the Santa Paula branch line west of Sespe Creek. VCTC continues a dialogue with Sierra Northern to identify an alternative site for the rail cars until they can be placed back in service by the owner of the rail cars or until Sespe Bridge reconstruction is completed. Earlier this week, our staff and council met with Sierra Railroad, Sierra Northern, and Mendocino Railways to seek a path forward to address community concerns related to rail car storage. Planning, design, and engineering to restore the pre-disaster design capacity and function of the Sespe Creek Overflow Railroad Bridge is also underway. The geotechnical and hydrology reports have been completed, and the design team is advancing the design after completion of the 30% design review. VCTC filed a CEQA notice of exemption with the clerk and recorder on August 24th. The 35-day statute of limitations to challenge that determination expired on September 24th, with no challenges having been received. On September 25th, the staff and the RailPros design team met with the Ventura County Watershed Protection District and the county's Public Works Agency Roads and Transportation Department to discuss access and permitting during the construction period. And on September 27th, VCTC staff and Sierra Northern participated in a site visit by the FEMA inspector and representatives of both the FEMA and Cal OES support teams. The focus of the design and engineering process is to ensure safe and resilient bridge reconstruction that minimizes impacts to the environment and the community. Given the urgent need to restore rail services and repair the bridge, VCTC is conducting an accelerated design and planning phase of this project. The current working schedule is to release a request for proposals for construction management support in either November or December of this year, then to release the request for bids for a construction firm in the December-January timeframe. The goal is to commence on-site construction in May of 2024 to allow construction to occur during the driest period of the year to avoid and minimize impacts to the watershed. While we had initially hoped to complete reconstruction by the end of this calendar year, the on-the-ground hydrologic, geologic, and environmental conditions of the bridge and watershed are such that the construction window is from May to September. In April of 2022, the Commission adopted a goal to reinvigorate the process to complete the Santa Paula Branch Line Bike Trail. And in June of 2023, the Commission adopted a strategic plan that included an update to the Santa Paula Branch Line Trail Master Plan. Planning and design for the 4-mile section from the East Ventura-Montalvo Metrolink station, led by the City of Ventura, from the Montalvo Metrolink station to Saticoy, is included in the regional funding allocation for the Active Transportation Program Cycle 6, and in late June, the California Transportation Commission approved funding to construct the trail section as part of a suite of projects that VCTC submitted through the Solutions for Congested Corridors. In July, the Southern California Association of Governments also awarded a Regional Early Action Planning County Transportation Commission's Partnership Program grant to VCTC to update the master plan and EIR, and to actually prepare an EIS as well for the trail system from Saticoy to Piru, looking at existing conditions, phasing plans, and cost estimates, trail alignment to better serve housing areas and improve access to the transit connections, conduct outreach to disadvantaged communities and neighboring landowners to address any concerns and build support for the project, and to evaluate and make recommendations for lighting and other tools to improve safety, alleviate neighbor concerns, and encourage use of the trail and transit connections. We anticipate bringing a grant award memorandum of understanding with SCAG to the Commission for approval at our November meeting. Also, at yesterday's Cycle CalCoast quarterly meeting, we had the opportunity to hear from the United States Department of Transportation's Full Pay Transportation Systems Center. They shared a presentation on Rails with Trails. And Mendocino Railway's president and CEO, Robert Pinoli Jr., spoke about the skunk train in Mendocino County and their own Rails with Trails project. And myself and a representative of the City of Ventura shared updates on our own local Rails with Trails projects along the Santa Paula branch line. On the administrative process side, VCTC staff also continued to process rights of entry permits, lease reassignments, crossing agreements, utility license agreements, and invoices. VCTC coordinated with Sierra Northern Railway to respond to reports of trash or weeds on the right-of-way, as further detailed in the written staff report. Also, given an increase in the number and complexity of administrative and real estate actions on the branch line, VCTC staff has begun development of a new online application to receive, track, and process real estate requests and actions. We are using the same GIS-based software platform that we use for data collection on the Freeway Service Patrol, and also implementation of the trespass removal policy. So we didn't acquire any new expensive software. We're just using our own staff's ingenuity to develop a better system to track, monitor, and process real estate actions. And our hope is that this tool will simplify and standardize the real estate process for the branch line, both for our staff and for lessees and applicants. Lastly, just to give you a sense of the ongoing administrative and program management tasks required for the branch line, this slide contains my running to-do list. And each one of these items is a lengthy set of tasks to accomplish. So just wanted to give you a sense of all that we're working on to operate, maintain, improve, and manage the Santa Paula Branch Line Railroad right-of-way to, again, be a county-wide asset, transportation asset that provides benefits to both the Santa Clara River Valley and the entire county. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have. I'd also like to mention that Sierra Northern Railway's Ventura Division Manager, Matt Blackburn, is here with us today as well.
Hey, do commissioners have any questions or comments for Ms. Fagan? Commissioner Chavez.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Ms. Fagan, for the presentation. Just a couple of questions. I know it was said that you're looking at alternate locations in order to store the rail cars. Have we identified those alternate locations, or are we still trying to explore what's the best location for them?
I might defer to council and Mr. Erickson for that.
You know, I'll take an answer on this one. We are working and have some proposed ideas in mind that we are hoping will be mutually acceptable to both parties. And obviously, this has been a controversial issue with many residents who've spoken about this, and I think we are doing the best we can to try to find a solution that meets the good concerns of the residents, but also allows our operator to continue to make revenue, which ultimately reduces our taxpayer subsidy that goes into this line. So.
And then probably a follow-up to that is in regards to who actually owns those cards that are being stored. Is it the contractor that we have, or is it a third party that
The rail cars are
I'll go
owned
ahead.
by a third party, and that's as part of the terms of the railroad lease and operations agreement. So they are owned by a firm that is under contract to Sierra Northern Railway.
Okay. Question in regards to the bridge. Who has ownership of it, and who's responsible for maintaining that bridge? Obviously now it needs to be repaired and fixed, but who ultimately had ownership and the responsibility to maintain certain standards for it?
So VCTC is the owner of the railroad bridge. As the owner, we're responsible for up to the point when Sierra Northern took over ownership, or took over management of the line. We were responsible for the regular bridge inspections and other operation and maintenance of that line with our prior contractor, Fillmore and Western. And then in partnership with Sierra Northern Railway, we continue as the owner to be responsible for the owner. We are ultimately the owner of that bridge. The railroad lease and operations agreement does has clauses that are related to assigning responsibility for addressing concerns, or for fixing any problems that have been caused by acts of God. And I could see Mr. Mattis would like to take a swing at that.
The VCTC is the owner, but the agreement with Sierra Northern specifically provides that VCTC can choose not to make this type of capital repair if they choose to. And if they don't, then not Fillmore and Western, but Sierra Northern can make it, but they can't obligate VCTC to make it from a practical standpoint, this bridge went out due to storm damage, and we are pursuing, VCTC is pursuing a FEMA reimbursement for that. But if those funds were not available, VCTC would not be obligated to repair that. They could choose to, but they would not be obligated to.
Okay, I appreciate that, and yes, I understand, like many of us, that the storm caused thousands to probably even millions of dollars in damages across the state, so we were no exception to that. I did want to just make a comment in regards to the Santa Paula branch line trail planning. I think it's a great idea. I've seen the benefits in the San Fernando Valley where you have this walk/bike path along the G line, which was formerly known the Orange Line. And then even my time of operating buses in Westlake Village, of seeing those bike walk paths along the streets, that they are utilized. It is a benefit, and it allows people to be able to essentially explore their community a little bit more. So I am 100% behind that. I think it's a huge benefit. It promotes a healthy lifestyle by promoting physical movement. It allows people to have a safe place to travel along their community. And, you know, it's just fun. And maybe get kids off the tablets and the devices. But I just wanted to make that comment in regards to that. Again, thank you for the presentation. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Thanks, sir. Commissioner Engler, do you have a comment?
Is this working? There, it's working now. Very directional. The question I have really is twofold. One, we just touched upon it a little bit. Costs for repair this would be perhaps assisted by FEMA due to storm damage, public assistance. Hopefully we can secure that, those fundings for this. The second comment on the bridge is that, like any construction project, we have delays, and unfortunately, this is affecting the neighbors in the area, and it's just unfortunate. But I want to make sure that that bridge is built back correctly and will sustain the next time the rain falls heavily. But the storage of rail cars out there, obviously, and we've heard testimony for, gosh, now 6-7 months of how this is affecting the neighborhood. The rail cars are, as most rail cars tend to be, heavily graffitied. My experience with graffiti is that when you have graffiti, it attracts more graffiti. Is there anything that we can do to address perhaps cleaning these cars up prior to them coming in? I know they're third-party apparatus, but is there some way we can require that these cars, when they're put into our area, can be at least alleviated with or mitigated with some of the graffiti?
So the Railroad Lease and Operations Agreement does include standards related to graffiti abatement, and it includes specific standards for addressing offensive or hate speech type graffiti. And so when that is observed and reported to us, or observed by the Sierra Northern team, they do go out and paint over that graffiti as quickly as possible. As far as a more large scale repainting of the cars on site, it would be quite costly. It's not out of the question, but that would be a very costly undertaking. It's something that we have looked into a little bit in the past, and if the commission were to so direct us, we could sort of revisit that. I don't know, Martin, did you want to say anything?
Yeah, just, I think in answer to your other question, we can't require the cars to come in graffiti-free under the current terms of the contract. There are some provisions, as Amanda noted, for hate speech graffiti, but unfortunately, most rail car storage is concerning cars that tend to be covered in some degree of graffiti.
And then we also have, for the things that are under, within our right-of-way, and I know also that the county, within their own areas of responsibility, have been working to take care of graffiti on other things other than the rail cars. So when the electrical boxes, for example, get tagged, those that either belong to us as the railroad or to our lessees and partners. You know, we've made phone calls to the folks who have equipment out on our line to make sure that they're, you know, continuing to stay up on, you know, repainting fences and electrical boxes and that sort of thing. We do try our best to address those when they come up. And then I also just wanted to mention to your first point about making sure that the bridge is reconstructed to a resilient manner that's going to withstand future storms. That has been a major focus of our design team. You'll notice in the lower right-hand corner of the slide, just a screen capture of two of the designs for the pilings that hold the bridge in place. The one on the left is the existing original design, and the one on the right is the updated design features. Because of the geology and the hydrology, the piles have to be drilled much, much deeper than they were before, something like 80 feet. The scour depths that were observed by our hydrologists were on the order of 35 to 40 feet, which is really quite spectacular. It's created its own little whirlpool there at the foot of the bridge. So we're also reducing the number of pilings, or proposing to reduce the number of pilings from 3 to 2, so it minimizes the amount of water that's coming at each of the pilings. So our design team is taking a very concerted approach to improve the resiliency of the bridge for the long term. Thank you.
You good? Thank you. Commissioner Brogy? No.
Now am I on? Thank you. Amanda, thank you so much for that presentation, very detailed. And since I was out on vacation the last month or so, it brought me up to speed on things. I have a couple questions. With regard to the CMEX cars that are stored, and I know this has been asked, I haven't heard an answer, but I heard you say during your presentation that they may be there up until the point in time that the bridge is repaired. So is there an annual contract, or will it expire? Is that something that we can?
I'll defer to Mr. Mattis.
Thank you.
Thank you. And we have a request into Sierra Northern for a copy of the contract. We've not seen the term of the contract. It had earlier been represented to us that the cars could be moved by January of 2024.
Okay.
But we're pursuing that right now.
Great. All right. Thank you. And then I'm assuming will we not hear until the next meeting or the following meeting, or is that something that at least the cities of Santa Paula and Fillmore can get information on?
We can update the commission prior to the next meeting once we get the information, and depending on which information we get. We've not received it yet, so I can't represent exactly what's going to be in those agreements because we haven't seen it.
Great, thank you. And then just a comment, I've had a lot of people comment to me within the community about their concerns about the bridge being built to, specific plans of standards where we won't have this issue again. And I think your screen up there really answered the questions I had that I can now take back to the community and say, no, this bridge won't come down again in the next heavy rain we have, so.
Well, at least the section we rebuilt. Our design team has indicated that in the long term, we would probably need to plan for, making additional improvements to the bridge. So this will certainly address the damaged sections, and this was not one of the quote-unquote bad bridges. It just took on so much water that it couldn't withstand. So we are doing everything we can to make sure that the reconstruction meets all the current design standards and will be a resilient design.
Great, I appreciate that. How old was that bridge? Does anybody know?
It was constructed in 1969.
69, okay.
So just over 50 years.
Any other questions or comments for Ms. Fagan? Okay, seeing none, this is a receive and file, so that will be the direction. Thank you very much. Takes us to item number 12, Regional Broadband Infrastructure Update, Santa Paula Branch Line Corridor. And Ms. Fagan.
This is me again. I just had to change items.
And before Amanda starts, I just wanted to make a couple comments in relation to I think the nuances of this branch line, because I think, like many things in life that are complicated or that involve multi-jurisdictions, VCTC, in buying the branch line, it allows us to have a right-of-way to build bike lanes and trails that we otherwise probably would not be able to do. And it also allows us to work in partnership with the county to build fiber optic lines, which you're going to hear about next. So I only make that point to say sometimes an issue like owning a railroad can present some real opportunities. Sometimes it can present some real challenges. And I appreciate the commission working to find solutions across that broad spectrum of uses.
All right. Thank you, Chair McDonald and members of the commission. Again, I'm Amanda Fagan, Director of Planning and Sustainability here at VCTC. VCTC serves as the Regional Transportation Planning Agency, or RTPA, for Ventura County. And we're committed to continually improving Ventura County's transportation system through enhanced mobility and preserving the quality of life enjoyed by our residents. Broadband infrastructure can support efforts to solve transportation challenges, reduce emissions, and manage congestion by facilitating telework, telehealth, teleeducation, and improved access to remote services. With this in mind, at the May 2021 and January 2023 Commission meetings, the County of Ventura's Chief Information Officer, Terry Theobald, presented an overview of the county's efforts related to regional broadband infrastructure deployment with a focus on middle mile infrastructure. In addition to VCTC's role as the Regional Transportation Planning Agency, VCTC also serves and owns and manages the 32-mile Santa Paula Branch Line Railroad, as you very well know, which extends from Ventura to Piru through the Santa Clara River Valley and the State Route 126 corridor. This area has a particular need for improved broadband access, and the Santa Paula Branch Line corridor has been identified as a key resource for middle mile broadband deployment. To support the county's planning efforts, we've provided studies, maps, and draft utilities license agreements templates for use of the Santa Paula Branch Line corridor. We've continued to communicate with the county and their contract advisors, and we've provided letters of supports for grant applications, and also worked with the county team on a draft utility license agreement. So Mr. Theobald is here again today to provide some really exciting updates, and also as a preview to what we anticipate will be bringing a utility license agreement to the commission for approval, hopefully in November. So, Mr. Theobald?
Thank you, Amanda. Chair McDonald, members of the Commission, Director Erickson, my name is Terry Theobald. I'm the Chief Information Officer for the County of Ventura, and I have oversight over the county's broadband middle mile efforts. And just so we're clear, broadband middle mile means the large pipes that run from the source of the internet into regional areas, and then we have final mile, which is where we're running fiber into households and businesses. So with that, Amanda covered a lot for me already. She said I have exciting updates. They're exciting to me. I'm not sure if they're exciting to everybody else, but I've been asked to keep this brief, and so I will keep it brief. If I can figure out how the clicker works. Oh, wrong clicker. This looks just like mine. So here's our agenda, some background goals. So we've talked about this before. We talked before that we were going after this thing called the Local Agency Technology or Technical Assistance Grant, which we did, and for which we were awarded $491,000. So here is the plan that was initiated when we first started work on this with some direction. And you can see we are coming in from Santa Clarita. We have a primary route that comes down the 126. We have a route that comes down the 118. And we have a loop that goes up to Ojai and back down into Santa Paula. Why this is important is I'm going to continue to I'm going to start talking about the first phase, and the first phase goes from Santa Clarita to the city of Ventura. Why? Well, this is the state network. This is what they're building. So this is the CPUC. They've said this is the plan that we're going to have, and there's some There are some technical issues with this. One of this is a lack of redundancy, and the other one is their primary route that they're leaning on here are the 5 and the 101. And so unfortunately, that doesn't handle as much of the county as we would like. And there's also some time frame as to when all this will be built out at the state level. So we felt it was important for us to continue down the path of a municipal middle mile or a municipal infrastructure that would allow us to reach the communities that we needed to reach and would also allow us to have control over it where we needed to. For example, if a community wouldn't be served, could the county step up and serve that community? And we haven't committed to doing that. We're waiting to see what happens, but if we needed to do it, we could do it. This shows you where the underserved areas are, underserved disadvantaged areas. You can see all of the dots. You can see there's a large number of dots along the 126 route, and that's where we're focusing. And the reason why we're focusing there isn't just because it was on our plan, but also the state also wants us to focus on the 126 route to start. So we have 3 phases. We have the 126 phase, which is phase 1. We have the 118 phase, which is phase 2. And then we have the Ojai phase, which is phase 3 on the 33 and the 150. Okay, so here's the phase 1 picture. So where are we at the county level? Where we are at the county level is, first of all, we were able to submit a FFA grant, which is the Federal Funding Account Act for broadband, for $20 million. We submitted that last Friday. What's remarkable about that is not only is the county submitting that, but we also have a telecom provider that went through an RFP process that we partner with that is contributing money into that process, so we don't, to serve a lot of the communities along that route. I believe it's somewhere in the neighborhood of 1,500 households will be served along the 126 as a result of this project. And the really big news and the exciting news was the state, the California Department of Technology, which is working with the CPUC, has agreed to join our project. So the state will be funding part of this project. The grant will fund part of this project. Our telecom partner will fund some of this project, to the tune of somewhere in the neighborhood of $30 million. The grant will cover $20 million of that, and the other 2, the state and the partner, will cover the rest. So that went in on Friday. We're expecting to hear back from them in November. We think our chances of getting that award are very good. And once that award is provided to us, then we can begin the task, the heavy lifting of actually building. What does this mean to VCTC? It means that you're a significant part of this project. We could build along the 126 highway, which is exactly what Caltrans was going to do as part of the state project. But the VCTC right-of-way is a less expensive method to do that, because rather than do the traditional trenching, what we can do is plow. And the plow is basically a big machine that digs the trench, puts the fiber in, and then fills it in behind it. I think the cost is about half, and that was a very interesting thing to the state, and so it would lower their overall cost in our area to provide broadband. The other thing that's exciting about this is that it provides you a utility that you also can take advantage of. So we talked a little bit, or maybe a lot, about the bike path and the trails along the right-of-way. So you can build the trails, and you can do landscaping. You might even be able to provide lighting, but there's other things you might want to provide along the trail. You might want to provide things that require you to be connected to the internet, Wi-Fi on the trails, kiosks along the trails, security along the trails. So all of that's available once the fiber is in place. You just need to tell us where you want to do things, and we can make sure that those are included in the plan, at least the locations where you want that. It also might provide benefits to your contract rail operator. I'm not sure exactly what those would be, but they might also be there. Traffic safety at the right-of-ways, or I'm sorry, at the rail crossings, communications for the trains and for VCTC workers that use and maintain it. So where we are right now is we have a draft license agreement that was provided to us by your administrative team led by Amanda. We reviewed that on our side. We've made some suggestions on what we were thinking we would like to see in that, and we're in the middle of working on that right now. So the where we're at is within the licenses, there's two parts of the license agreement that are really where the meat is. It's where the consideration is in the contract. The first one is the initial license cost. And one of the big concerns was, there's some significant application costs that go along with this. We'll need to do a design study. We'll need to do some utility reviews. There's some other things that we might have to do. Is it possible that this cost could be covered? And while I don't know what the exact number is, it seems like a reasonable request that we could be able, the county or through our grant, we could cover the costs for the initial work that's done by the VCTC team and any subcontractors that they have, like design engineering. The second one are the ongoing costs for use. That's also in the licensing agreement. And we've suggested that what we might do there is in-kind asset sharing. So, for example, instead of paying money for ongoing licensing on the right-of-way, which is something typically is done in the contracts you have with other contractors, we would provide you access to our fiber at no additional cost. That was one thought. Just so you know, the cost of dark fiber, dark means it's not lit. It means it's just available for you to hook up and use, which means you would put your own equipment in place and you would be able then to take advantage of basically what's in the ground. Kind of like in the old days when we were, in telephone systems, we were on copper. They would run copper to your house, but then you'd have to buy the phone. It's the same concept. Alternatively, we might be able to work with you on, we would maintain that for you. So we would provide you lit fiber, and we would provide equipment on the ends in order to enable this. Again, we would need more specifics on what you wanted to use it for. And that's where we are with our agreement right now. When I was here last time, I asked if you would be willing to consider an agreement with the county to use the right-of-way, and the resounding answer, I believe, was yes. I'm not here asking for you to approve an agreement today. I'm just giving you this brief update, and then I'll continue to work with your staff, and hopefully we can come back with an agreement that works for everybody in November. And that's all I have this morning.
Thank you. Commissioner Crosswhite.
I have a question, I think, for our staff. We were just talking earlier about the potential for a Santa Paula branch line trail and that planning. And there's this planning and design. And I'm not sure how the timelines do or don't align, but I just want to make sure that we're thinking through both of those things so that we don't inadvertently go forward with this and put broadband and then go, oops, we need a pole right there.
And I'll go ahead and just answer that. Yes, we are looking at these concurrent uses, and obviously we don't want anything that would preclude the portions of the branch line from continuing. But I think one of the benefits of this Terry equipment trenching is that it's a fairly limited depth they're going to. So we're hopeful too, that some of the potential technology that could come about from this might help with some issues that have been expressed, some concerns from growers, whether it's trespassing or other issues, or could possibly even help with rail safety issues. But I don't want to speculate too much on that because I'm not even completely sure what dark fiber is. So.
And I'll just add, Commissioner Crosswhite, there is a task within the Trail Master Plan update scope of work that does look at integrating the broadband infrastructure into the Trail Master Plan. So the two weren't necessarily, they were both contemplated in the original acquisition of the branch line, but their concurrence in terms of project timing wasn't necessarily anticipated. So we are looking at and I think Terry and his crew will hopefully be long gone and done by the time we start building the actual trail, but that definitely is something that we're looking at.
Yeah, I was just also thinking, since it isn't very deep, if there are parts of it that have to go into the ground, or kind of where the path is versus so I'm just glad that I figured that you were all coordinating that, but I didn't want to assume.
Well, and I would add, and Terry sort of alluded to this, that one of the initial costs of doing this work is that we'll need to have a plan check and engineering review completed for something like 250 sheets of engineering plans that turn into someday 27 miles of fiber optic cable. So there will be a cost associated with that. We are not staffed to do that kind of engineering review, so we will need to contract that out. But that's certain, we will look at those plans to make sure that they're not impacting rail operations or future use of the right-of-way.
I also just want to add that there's a concept in delivering fiber in the ground called microtrenching. So even though the pull boxes are set up at a certain location, it's certainly possible to do microtrenching, which is a much shallower depth. Because it's on the right-of-way, it's probably not as exposed as it would be if it was in a regular community, a regular street.
Thank you. Any other questions for Ms. Fagan or Mr. Theobald? Commissioner Lopez.
Thank you, Mr. Theobald. Got it. Been figuring this mic out. With regard to the actual work, and I think seeing some of the issues that happen with the branch line and the communication with property owners along the rail line, what is the plan there, or is there, what would be the buffer as to who is notified and what that outreach? I think it's very important to include that as part of the process.
I can't answer you. I'm not really sure what the protocol is on the branch line for the neighborhoods that it's going through. I can tell you that the VCOG is also partnering on this project, and part of their function is to help with all of the ancillary things that happen with this project besides just the basic construction cost.
Okay. I would just, encourage that if there is an opportunity to engage with the property owners along the work that will be done, would be beneficial now, rather than coming back later and having more issues. So, but thank you.
I can work with your staff on that.
Commissioner Brogy.
Yeah, I had the same question, but I also had, so that's been answered, and I also agree that we need to make sure that we get communication out there with the property owners so we don't encounter some of the issues that we had previously. But I also had another question, just completely out of curiosity. But during your presentation, you mentioned that the state is preferring that you start on the 126. Do you have any idea why? I mean, the entire county.
I know exactly why.
Oh, okay.
So the state doesn't have to participate in this. And when I was back here before, we weren't sure if the state was going to participate or not. And if they hadn't, we would have continued. But because the state is contributing to this, they want to make sure that the underserved neighborhoods are, according to their data, not our data, are being served. So there's no disagreement that there's a number of underserved areas from Piru down to Saticoy, El Rio, Nyland, those areas. That's on their map, it's on our map. And the other reason we originally started this way on the county side was because we felt that would be one of the easier builds to do, because we could potentially use the railway for that. It would be faster, it would be more economical. So when the state joined us, they said, basically, here's the areas that we want to serve first, because it covers the most. And then the next one after that, if the state participates, will be again, another conversation with us on where do we want to go next. So this is just the first one of the project that we're doing.
And I'm sorry to jump in on that, but I just want to make sure that I think the state's preference for 126 for the highway was that they own that right of way. I think their preference, if I understand correctly, Terry, is that they actually prefer it to be on the branch line now because it's less costly.
That is correct.
Okay.
Also, within the current plan, within this right-of-way, as we'll be installing 6, so there's conduit and there's fiber. So the total combination should wind up being 6 conduits. Not all have fiber in them. 2 will belong to the state, 2 will belong to our partner, and 2 will belong to the County of Ventura.
Sure. Commissioner Gurrell.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Theobald. It's been a while, I think, since this was before the Board of Supervisors, and maybe I'm conflating 2 different hearings, but can you clarify the funding part of this? There was obviously state grant money, the SB money. There was reference to this another state source and then a partner resources. Can you come back to clarify the total funding pie for this particular build-out? of the middle mile, and how much, if any of that, is general service money back to the county?
So at this point, the only money coming out of the general fund would be funding for me and my team. There's three main efforts going on right now. There is the effort to do the final design, technical design on it from the fiber side. That's on us. We went to the state and received local area technical assistance money for $491,000, so that was state money that came to us. We're currently working with our partner Magellan to work on that design effort. The next thing that we did is we went to the VCOG and asked them if they were interested in participating with us, because there are a lot of other things to close the digital divide other than just putting fiber on the ground. There's education, there's equipment, there's building trust, and all of those need to be done. And so the VCOG agreed that that was something they could take on. So we worked with VCOG to attain another LADA grant for approximately $500,000, and they developed the VCOG working group, which I sit on to assist with that. And then the last piece is the FFA grant, which is the Federal Funding Account grant, which is actually managed through the CPUC. The total cost of that, of our project, again, is somewhere in the neighborhood of $30 million. The state is paying a portion of that. Our partner is paying a portion of that. That's the matching funds. And the balance, which is approximately $20 million, is what we submitted on the grant. And that will be paid for out of the state funds that came from the federal funding account.
Got it. Thank you for that clarification. Just one other question. It was hinted at in your slides and also by Mr. Erickson that the installation of this fiber optic could improve security for the rail itself. Can you illuminate on that? Is that something that could be available directly to cars themselves? And I ask this because I went through a process with Metro down in Los Angeles. They wanted to improve on-car security with AI and optics and sensors that would, but their backbone, their telecommunications backbone needed to be upgraded along all of their lines if they wanted to actually use that kind of a system. Could the cars benefit from this? Could the transportation modes benefit from this?
I will defer to Director Erickson, although I can comment if he would like. So, so I'm a computer geek, and so my response to that question is, if you were to install Wi-Fi along the rail line, and you can install secured Wi-Fi, that can be only used for security, and you can have public Wi-Fi. We actually do that at the county today, and you actually might have the same setup here, I'm not really sure. But if you had that, then what you could do is you could put devices on the cars, you could put cameras on the cars, you could put lighting on the cars, you could put other sensors on the cars, and as long as the cars were within the range of the Wi-Fi, it could transmit that data back to a central location, either the rail contractor, VCTC headquarters.
And I'll just add,
Thank you.
in one of our, in our ongoing discussions with, I think, with growers and with, groups that have concerns about the trail, I think legitimate concerns, there are some examples in other communities where sensor technology or detection technology can help with trespassing issues or other, and potentially safety issues, but also, I think, the concept of being able to utilize that, that line and the capacity to get from that on a technology side. I mean, I think a lot of this going back, and I've heard Terry do this presentation before, I mean, during the pandemic when remote learning was so critical and some communities did not have adequate Wi-Fi, I mean, I think a lot of the baseline of this goes back to providing these communities with adequate and ongoing Wi-Fi in the future, if we ever hopefully never have a pandemic again, but for remote learning and those kind of options. Just wanted to.
Yeah, that benefit is crystal clear and easy. So I'm just asking the additional question because I do know that Homeland Security and DOT were very interested in passenger rail safety, and so I just asked the question because down in Los Angeles they were able to pull down, Metro was able to pull down resources for the optics and sensors related to it, but. We can now possibly look at that if we're also, creating a telecommunications capability that would empower such, next generation of technology. So I'm just questioning.
I'll just
Thank
finally add, despite ongoing challenges we're having with our operator, they actually are quite, for a small operator, quite technologically advanced, in their field with some of the things they're doing, and I would say are on the cutting edge of this. So I'm hopeful that will be a discussion we can continue to have with them of how we could utilize that.
Yeah, and it's not, and the benefit really is not, maybe not this 126 corridor, but the future in other corridors. So thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Crosswhite.
Just one quick clarification, because we keep bringing up VCOG, and I just want to clarify that VCOG has subcontracted or has a memorandum of agreement with the EDCVC, the Economic Development Collaborative of Ventura County, because we have one very part-time staff member. So it isn't our one staff member that will be doing all of the education and outreach. It'll be through this partnership with the Economic Development Collaborative and all of the resources that they have access to. So I just wanted to make sure that that was clear in case there was anyone here that wasn't familiar with that agreement. So thanks.
Correct.
And Chair McDonald, I'm sorry to make one more point, but along the lines of what Commissioner Crosswhite just said, and Amanda alluded to this in her discussion, we are, in our final agreement, we are going to seek, the funding to help subcontract this because we have a relatively small team, certainly compared to the county. Even the county IT department is probably significantly larger than my entire staff. So we will be seeking the resources to make sure that we can contract this out and the work that needs to be done so it doesn't place additional burdens on our staff. So I just wanted to reiterate that. I said that last time Terry spoke, and we appreciate Terry working with us in that regard.
Okay. Any other comments from Ms. Fagan or Mr. Theobald? Mr. Erickson, I'm seeing this more as a receive and file than anything else, so unless you want a specific action, we'll just treat it as a receive and file.
Thank you. I needed a little reminder from our council here. Terry talked about two different options that we've sort of addressed so far in terms of how VCTC would be compensated for use of the line, the sort of dark fiber versus lit fiber, and or whether there was a sort of financial annual lease fee payment. So I just wanted to hear whether the commission had any sort of thoughts or direction on those different options. We as a staff have, in talking with Terry and his advisors, that we think that sort of either dark or lit fiber would be the right way to go. But I just wanted to sort of get an initial read or temperature from the commission on whether that was a reasonable pursuit or whether it's something that you would rather that we look at an annual license fee.
Okay, if somebody would like to offer some sort of a motion to move this forward, I'd entertain it. Ms. Chavez, or Commissioner Chavez?
I would say, based off of the two options, to move option 2 to staff for direction to explore a little bit further.
Yes, Commissioner Crosswhite.
Can someone clarify what option 2 is?
Ms. Fagan? Oh,
So that
Thank you.
option
It's on the
2?
line. Thank you.
And so then I know that we meant, so that's what, so,
Yeah, I guess I wasn't necessarily looking for you to tell me we need to go down one road or the other, just to kind of get a sense if the commission had a strong feel. So we think that working with the county on either dark or lit fiber would be the right way to go. But if, I wanted to make sure that the commission didn't have a strong objection to that approach and rather wanted us to look toward an annual fee, like a $100,000 per year fee or whatever that amount would be.
so you would come back to us with a more specific recommendation
Yes.
between light and dark? I mean, because I don't feel like
Yes.
I personally have enough information of light versus dark to be able to say, yes, this is exactly what we should do
I
today.
can't personally make that determine, I don't know enough yet either, so I think I understand enough to say that dark is probably the best way for us to go because it gives us more unlimited opportunities. When you go to the way I understand it from Terry and his team is that when you go toward the lit fiber, it gives you, it's a more limited set of opportunities available to you. Did I get that right? In the very basic.
And I'll just ask, have we given you enough direction to allow you to move forward at this point?
Yes, I think as long as you're not opposed to a fiber type relationship, then that's great. And we will come back in November with a more specific proposal in the.
Okay. Go ahead.
I think the question for consideration, not for today, but as you're deliberating, is do you want to be in the broadband business? If you want to be in the broadband business, in other words, if you want to control broadband yourself, then the option 1 would allow you to do that. Under option 2, you don't want to be in the broadband business, and you would want to sub that out to someone. And depending upon what your requirements are, the county would be willing to potentially take that on because we are in the broadband business.
Okay. Commissioner Chavez?
I just want to say that, and then correct me if I'm wrong, just based off of the presentation between dark and light, I didn't even know there was a difference between broadband. I thought broadband was broadband. But the way I look at it is that we're a transportation agency, not a broadband agency. And I feel that option 2 was more ideal, like, you know, our homes, if we have ADT or something, there's somebody else that manages that service for us. We pay a monthly fee. Of course, I'm not saying rob us blind, but I'm saying if the county has the ability and the people to be able to maintain, install, monitor, while still allowing us to use the equipment, provide a service to our riders or whoever is in the area, then I think that's the ideal location and the path that we should be taking. Versus VCTC essentially duplicating and creating a redundant service that the county's already kind of putting in place. That's the way I'm looking at it. I don't know if I'm confusing it.
Yeah, I definitely had the same exact initial reaction that you're having right now, that we don't know enough about broadband to really make use of it, right? But I think one of the challenges with going in the lit fiber direction is that we would need to be able to provide very specific direction to the county and their construction team about exactly where we want the drops, locations, what type of equipment we would want to have installed up front. And quite honestly, we're not there yet. We don't have that information yet. And so that's why it's a very difficult question that I personally have been wrestling with, and I'm admittedly outside of my area of expertise on all of this. So just trying to get a better sense of what options are available to us and what are the sort of costs and benefits versus challenges associated with each. But I definitely agree. We don't want to be in the broadband business because we're just not staffed for that. But we're not necessarily at a point yet where we can tell the county, I need 13 locations and here they are, and this is the type of equipment that we need. So it makes the negotiation of the license agreement a little bit more challenging.
And that's my concern, is the fact that, and Mr. Erickson, our Director Erickson mentioned, our staff is so small that trying to essentially create a position for somebody to know how to operate this type of service is a concern for me.
Well, and let me just clarify, I certainly am not trying to create positions with
No,
this.
no,
But
and I
I'm just
apologize.
making sure that we have adequate cost recovery, and also that we analyze if there is some intrinsic value to VCTC that could be utilized to help provide more of the service we provide in this. So that's, and I think we have enough direction now to come back with you for a recommendation. Again, we're working on this on an accelerated timeline, really at the county's request, to move this project forward. And we want to make sure we do our due diligence with it, and I think we have in the number of presentations we have to you. But I think I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't look at this closely and say, we don't want to let some some intrinsic value that could benefit VCTC and what we do in transportation by just saying, sure, no, we'll sign away some rights. So I would just ask that you let us continue this discussion, negotiation. We've had a good partnership with Terry, and we'll come back to you with a recommendation that takes into account what was discussed today.
I just want to ask Terry one question. When having these conversations with VCTC, and if ultimately the direction is like, let's go with option 2, based off of the 2 that are presented, are you just going to say, here, give me your locations right now, or are you going to actually work with the team in order to be like, this would be a better benefit for you guys versus doing it this way?
I always have to look at at things from my customer's point of view. And
Okay.
so in this particular case, I believe that the system needs to be installed and configured for expandability. So what we'll do is we will start with what we believe we need, but it will be able to be expanded. We'll be able to add drops or microtrench to where we need to get to expand it based on the requirements.
And the goal is for a larger service area, not necessarily trying to space out the drops so far that there's no overlap between them, correct?
Well, our goal would be in the first round to get the drops close enough so that we could do the expansion as I described.
Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you, Chair.
Commissioner Johnson.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to make sure that we understand that we're not giving you direction on either one. I think it's really premature to talk about option 1 or option 2 for a couple of reasons. The first is option 1 does not require us to become a broadband provider in any way, because there are other firms that could handle that for us. The county is probably very competitive and would be an excellent option. But depending on the type of equipment that we're looking to install, there may be a more specialized provider. And so I would just ask that staff reach out to the Farm Bureau as well as Sierra Northern, because both of them would probably have some input. Both of them could greatly benefit from these things. I can only guess, for example, that when you're spending hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars on a location shoot at a railroad, that the ability to have broadband there at your site would be very valuable. And so I think, again, we should talk to Sierra Northern and as well as the Farm Bureau, see what the property owners and the leaseholders have to say about what they could do, because agriculture, we are seeing more and more smart devices, and there may be some properties there that would have a strong interest in making sure that they have wonderful broadband. And then, of course, we probably will need to look at cameras and sensors just to make sure we don't have intrusion into those private properties. Thank you.
Commissioner Johnson, I really appreciate those additional areas for exploration in terms of ag tech and benefits to the film companies that utilize the line. We've also been talking to Parallel Systems. They're an R&D rail operator, and they have indicated a very much interest in the broadband access and the way that they communicate with their autonomous rail vehicles could definitely benefit from this as well. So I think there are a lot of potential areas that we can explore. So thank you.
We're also working with the Ag Commissioner and the Farm Bureau now on another front, still requiring broadband to meet that requirement.
Okay, we provided direction. Thank you very much for the report. I think you've got enough to move forward with, so thank you. Takes us to item number 13, the Transit Integration and Efficiency Study. And Ms. Grassi, I'll ask you to do the presentation, then I have a couple people who have requested to speak. We'll take their comments, and then we'll bring it back to the commission for final action.
Understood. Well, good morning, commissioners. First, I just want to start by thanking everyone, the commissioners, the operator working group, city managers and staff, and the councils for their support of this process. It's been a long process, and there's been a lot of collaboration despite differing opinions, and we certainly appreciate everyone's participation and time. So just to go over the objectives and purpose again, it was initiated by the Commission in 2020 as a response to national trends in declining ridership, advancing equitable transportation, and the pandemic's impact on transit. Additionally, due to the specific issues of Ventura County Transit faces, such as lack of regional and fixed route paratransit services and variation between rider policies between communities. The goal is to seek and improve efficiency and the rider experience by identifying ways that agencies can coordinate or consolidate activities, administration, operations, and programs. So as part of this process, the TIES team analyzed existing conditions of transit services. They worked with staff, city leaders, commissioners to identify concerns and opportunities, and then identified strategies to improve and developed alternatives, grouping them by level of consolidation from minimal to full consolidation. So there's been a lot of progress since the TIES began. Moorpark launched their on-demand microtransit service. Camarillo began using TDA funds on transit. There's a lot more agencies on Google Maps. Gold Coast began operating their late-night safe rides and South Oxnard microtransit programs. We began the Youth Ride Free program and expanded the College Ride program. We've increased joint procurements, including for the short-range transit plan, which is coming up later in the agenda, and then the upcoming paratransit scheduling software RFP. We also received a grant funding for the countywide paratransit integration analysis, which will be done as part of the short-range transit plan, and for the transit stops and stations assessment capital program. Since the February meeting, we've done outreach to the cities through city council meetings, also to the Gold Coast Board. We've held operator working group meetings, conducted a survey, and then updated the final report. So a little bit more about the final report. We've incorporated feedback from the communities. So in this updated plan before you reflects comments that we received from communities specifically related to the concerns with full implementation of Alternative 2. And therefore, we incorporated an incremental approach from Alternatives 1 into 2. We recognize there, specifically for Alternative 2, still more work and study to be done. We'll need to conduct some more working groups, specifically for finance, but also for legal and labor. And so we recognize that that will take some time. And I'll note that in Alternative 2, the further study and strategies do not begin for 5 more years, recognizing the work that needs to be done. We also reinforce with stakeholders that the TIES is a framework and not a binding agreement. And the final report, particularly through the implementation plan, seeks to develop a roadmap to incremental integration, providing the framework and strategies to do so. So I just want to talk a little bit more about the implementation plan, which is kind of the main change since the draft that you saw in February. It outlines specific actions to implement on an annual basis over the next 10 years. It prioritizes low-hanging fruit and actions that are already underway, including things that are being incorporated into the upcoming SRTP, such as fare study, route classifications, and then, as I mentioned, things that are already happening, such as the study to the paratransit integration study, this bus stop improvement grant, and having more joint procurements. This is a view of this implementation plan. So up at the top, I know it's a little hard to see, but it has prerequisite actions that correspond to later key and supporting actions, and then below, the key and supporting actions correspond to strategies that are outlined in Alternatives 1 and 2. And then they are all rated based on budget impact, whether they require cost-sharing agreements, and if they directly impact riders. This is a view of the implementation plan table that provides further detail. And then, if approved, we will begin the countywide paratransit integration analysis, and as I said, as part of the SRTP, coming up in the next agenda item. We would begin implementing actions outlined in 2024, and then begin implementing subsequent actions and as those years approach. And then again, begin these additional working groups. I just want to note also that there have been a couple comments we've received since the final draft was published. So some made it into this final draft, and some will be added again, and that will be included in the very final draft. So before you, the recommendations is to approve the draft trans integration and efficiency study. And then staff recommends the approving alternatives 1 and 2 with incremental implementation of alternative 1 commencing after approval, and incremental implementation of alternative 2 beginning in 2028. And then, we, in light of the many different perspectives, we also included an alternate recommendation, which is approving adoption of alternative 1 with incremental implementation commencing after approval. And I just want to note that since alternative 3, which is full consolidation, had a lot of oppositions from some of the operators, is not included as a recommendation. And with that, I will be happy taking questions, or if you want to have a speaker, whatever.
Thank you. Before we turn it over to the commission, I'd like to invite Sean Crows up to speak, and he'll be followed by Vic Cammey. And you'll each have 3 minutes.
Good morning, commissioners and staff. I'm Sean Cruz, Public Works Administrator for the City of Camarillo. Thank you for this opportunity to speak. The City of Camarillo appreciates the time and effort that VCTC has taken with ties, and would also like to express its appreciation for the presentation that Claire Grasty provided to City Council on May 24th. During the presentation, our City Council provided several comments, which I would like to provide at this time. The City Council is supportive of opportunities for transit agencies to work together to establish new and/or improved transit services through cooperative efforts and potential cost-sharing collaborations. They have many concerns, though, and expressed that their priority is to ensure that Camarillo remains whole, and resources currently dedicated to Camarillo transit and streets programs are not reallocated regionally to the detriment of local services. Our city is also concerned about the potential size of the governing board under Alternative 3. Reducing Camarillo to one voice on the board would mean the loss of local and coordination for residents' needs. The city is supportive of Alternative 1. Alternative 1 enables the city to continue to work collaboratively with our transit partners while electing which transit program changes will provide the greatest benefit to our community. The City Council does not see Alternatives 2 or 3 as being beneficial to the city, as they would reduce the city's ability to be responsive to Camarillo residents. A larger governing board could establish transit services that benefit other communities to the detriment of ours. As for the implementation roadmap included in the TIES document, which was developed after the City Council presentation, we believe it provides useful actions that can benefit both transit agencies and the public. For Camarillo specifically, it provides additional time to work through its existing contract and explore different contractual options that could reduce cost while expanding transit services to our community. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Mr. Cammey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the VCTC board. I'm Vic Cammey. I retired as the transit director for VCTC in 2015. Before that, I was a director of a division at LA Metro and the director of transportation for SLOCOG. My interest in Ventura County Transit, it goes back to the 1970s when as a county associate planner, I worked on the input for the 1973 and 74 VCAG transportation plans and the creation of SCAT. While I'd like to see, in the best of all worlds, the East County transit operators look at using the old SCAT JPA and forming a JPA which would allow them all flexibility in their services but provide for a centralized administration. Barring that, I'd like you to consider an option which wasn't considered, and that is to have VCTC administer the transit operations in Camarillo, Thousand Oaks, and Moore Park, and Agora Hill, and Oak Park, much the same way they do in the Heritage Valley. Right now, they have been providing the staff to the Heritage Valley. The cities of Santa Paula, Fillmore, and the county unincorporated Piru do have control over exactly what the services are, but VCTC does all the management, coordinates all those services. In addition, VCTC is what's called the designated recipient, and the cities of Thousand Oaks, Moore Park, and Camarillo are subrecipients to VCTC. That means the VCTC does all of the federal paperwork and is responsible, as far as the FTA is concerned, for all of the compliance and all of the grants from the federal government that go to those three cities, as they are right now for Fillmore and Santa Paula. So I think you've got a chance for a model that would allow some centralized planning, some centralized administration and management and coordination of those contracts, but at the same time allow the cities to have some independence as far as setting their own levels of service and their own priorities within the cities. You've got a fantastic staff. Martin Erickson is just an outrageously competent and good general manager. Peter DeHaan, Sally Sellers, and Claire are all exceptional managers, and the staff they have does a great job of doing things. You've got the resources. I just encourage you to look at another option and taking on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I have no other speakers, so we will bring it back to the commission for any comments or discussion. Any comments by the commission? Commissioner Judge?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As I would like my wholehearted thing on this is alternative 3, because I believe full consolidation would give our county a more efficient transit system than what it has now. If that's not possible, I would be more inclined to go with alternative 2 for the time being. But the staff's recommendation makes sense to me also, so I'd be fine going with that. But there are ways to make the people whole in this county that use their funds for other things other than transit. So if we could possibly look at a way to make alternative 3 come true, that would be the best thing, in my opinion, for this entire county. You go down to Los Angeles, because I represent us on SCAG, and you go down, just stand outside the SCAG building any 5 minutes. There are 7 different transit agencies running buses up and down those streets in downtown Los Angeles. I don't know if those are coordinated or not. I doubt they are. But that just looks like it's a very uncoordinated system for buses. And in our county right now, in Simi Valley, we have our buses and we have VCTC buses. That's 2 different transit agencies. Why are we doing that? Consolidate the transit agencies, put all the fueling posts in one place where they're all getting paid for by the same people, administered by us, a county-wide board. Everybody has a fair shake. You won't be misrepresented, not that I could see anyways. I've never heard anybody on this board say they're misrepresented. So that's just my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Johnson?
Thank you. I lean more towards Commissioner Judge's approach on this, though I certainly can see how there would be real problems with alternative number 3. Just before this meeting, Mr. Erickson came up to me and talked about, and he brought this up at the last meeting, a young woman, Aubrey, the daughter of a friend, and she lives in Montalvo, and she attends Cal State Channel Islands. And when her dad, Mark, was at our coffee, we have this Saturday coffee thing, and he was talking about how she was going to go to Channel Islands, and she doesn't have a car. And you've got a whole bunch of people, including a VCTC commissioner, somebody on our active transportation committee, all pulling out their phones and trying to figure out how to help somebody in Montalvo get to college. And the fact is, it's continuing to work collaboratively. If this is the measure of success, we're not there. I've talked before about, taking the bus to get here, and then the meeting ran a little late, and the next bus wasn't going to come for over an hour, and it was raining. We have got to do better. When, you know, the city of Ventura, so we are in an odd position, and in a lot of ways, we're very fortunate. In the city of Ventura, we have a slightly higher daytime population than nighttime population, which is really the balance that you want. You don't want to be really too high either way. But it's not because people live in Ventura and work in Ventura. We have tens of thousands of people that leave Ventura every morning, and then we have tens of thousands of people that drive into Ventura every morning. And something I see, you know, at Gold Coast is for those cities that participate in Gold Coast, getting around between the cities, getting from Port Hueneme to Ojai is seamless. Getting, you know, somebody who lives in Oxnard and works at the government center, it's seamless. And vice versa. We have people that live in Ventura and work in Oxnard. We clearly don't have that happening at the East County. And it's a real shame. I keep going back to the discussion we had when the group of citizens wanted to put a tax measure on the ballot, and a third of it was going to go to freeway widening. And we heard so much about how Camarillo really wants the freeway widened to handle the traffic. And so when we talk about keeping agencies whole, you know, the city of Ventura needs a better system that is not freeway widening. And so when countywide transportation dollars go to something like that, and we're talking about hundreds of millions of dollars, it ends up causing problems for the city of Ventura. And so with that, I would support staff's recommendation, which would be alternative 1 and then phasing in alternative 2. Thank you, Chair.
Any other comments? Commissioner Lopez, and then I'll go to Commissioner Enegren.
Thank you.
Oh, okay, you're doing it on behalf of Commissioner Engler. Okay. Substitution time.
No, this is Commissioner Engler here. I think the consolidation of transportation services within the county, I think, is a lofty goal and something that perhaps we can aspire to. But going to that too rapidly would be something that would garner a lot of resistance from different cities. In the case of Thousand Oaks, we're already doing some consolidation services with our neighboring agencies. We're working together to make our processes a little more seamless. In our report, it mentions, I think, 7 strategies to approach, and I would be in favor of really working on those strategies as part of working more closely together with other agencies, such as combining procurement and contracts, getting on a identical platform of types of vehicles. Those are the types of things I think that would assist us in a regional way without, as the gentleman from Camarillo said, affecting our local control of what we're doing in our own cities. I know from Thousand Oaks' perspective, going to a consolidation there's some real financial concerns that would affect our city, and to be able to go to that distance right now would be something that we would be opposed to. But I think there's some things that we can do. Consolidation of a central dispatching for on-call services. Those are the types of things we really should be concentrating on now. I would be in favor of maybe an alternative of alternative 1, but right now I don't think we are in a position to really support anything that goes much further than that.
Thank you, Commissioner Enegren.
Thank you. I have to agree, and also I agree with Mr. Cruz from Camarillo. He said it pretty well. We're kind of in the same boat as Camarillo, so we'd rather just go with option number 1 and keep it at that. Thank you.
Commissioner Crosswhite.
So I have a question on one, because I went back and I watched thank you for coming out and doing a presentation. I went back and watched it, though, before coming here, and the slide, so one of the questions I have is, with option number 1 here, it says sub-regional demand response consolidation and increased agency coordination. What exactly is the sub-regional demand response consolidation? Because the slide that was presented to our city council was that option 1 was mostly collaborative. So what is the sub-regional consolidation?
Sub-regional demand response consolidation in the East County.
Okay, so that's just East County. Okay, because it didn't say that on here, because in the second bullet it says consolidate East County demand response. So I wasn't sure what in addition to that, what the other.
Yes, that possibly is an oversight, but so in alternative 1, it's sub-regional demand response consolidation in the East County, and then alternative 2 would be consolidation of all transit services in the East County. So fixed route, everything would be an alternative 2.
Well, an alternative 2 is also consolidating all of West County into Gold Coast.
That's correct.
Yeah, so, I could not today, because it was a little bit, it would have been helpful at that presentation that we had to our council if there had been a specific ask. It felt a little bit like, here's three options, but there wasn't and now you all should talk about this, because we're a city like Thousand Oaks and Fillmore, where we would lose somewhere between half and 2/5 of our road funding with option 2. And so I know that there's been mention of, and with option 3, that's entirely, 2 or 3, they're sort of entirely gone. And so I could not, sitting here today, without the council going, yeah, sure, let's get rid of all of that, I couldn't say, let's absolutely move forward with that. If it was, we're going to move towards 1, and we're going to continue to look at what 2 would look like, but I wouldn't be able to say, and certainly not move ahead with 3 without having a better idea. Because that's the number one thing that we hear about, is that we aren't making enough progress on our streets. And so it's just, as the supervisor knows, I'm sure she hears about what's happening in Santa Paula all the time. So it's just something that I understand the larger goal. We want people to be able to get around the county more efficiently. If someone gets on and I'm a little concerned geographically that even if it's all consolidated, someone getting on a bus in Santa Paula still may not be able to get to an appointment in Oxnard in an efficient way, just based on geography. So I would need more conversation before I could go towards 2 or 3.
Commissioner Chavez.
Thank you, Chair. For those that do not know, I have worked in public transit for 11, 12 years, ever since I turned 21. I'm now 34. But prior to that, my dependence for transportation was using, at that time, SCAT, to get to work, to get to school, recreational, spend time with girlfriends, with friends, whatever it may be. When I first entered into public transit, I was working for the contractor MV. They had a contract with both Camarillo and Gold Coast, and I worked both sides. So I saw the Gold Coast access, how that service ran, and then I saw the Camarillo dollar ride. One of the comments that was always said to me by residents of Camarillo was, why don't we have a service similar to Gold Coast, where we have fixed routes that are traveling throughout the entire city and connecting us? Additional concerns were also, why do buses take so long to come? Now, for someone who recently left LA Metro, and I can honestly tell you, having bus services that operate at headway times between 5 minutes up to 15 minutes is a benefit for residents. They're not running down, chasing down a bus. They're not rushing. They're not having anxiety of missing that bus and being late for school or work. When this first came before us, I was excited about it, but I was also a little cautious because as a resident of being, first, as a commissioner of being one of 2 non-elected members that are, my role here is to represent all cities. And all cities means Oxnard, Thousand Oaks, Moore Park, Ventura, and so forth. The mayors were the ones that appointed me to this position. And in that role, I knew that I couldn't just focus on my own city, but I had to understand the needs and the challenges of all the cities. So I understand the concerns when it comes to East County of saying, well, we have a lot of our money invested into our roads, and our roads are not the best. Believe me, I live in Oxnard. I know what bad roads look like and how the negative. I still love my city, but there are ways that they are getting better. But I can honestly tell you, being able to go from Port Anemi to Ventura on one transit provider is so much easier. Being able to go and ask the operator, how do I get to this place? And it's all the same agency, and they know, is so much easier. When I worked in LA, and this kind of goes back to what Commissioner Judge said about 7 different transit agencies for one bus stop, it's confusing. They're not coordinated. Everyone just runs their route just to run the route. When I was asked, how do I get to Culver City? My response, I don't know, because I don't. I know my geographic area of the San Fernando Valley, and anything outside of that, you're on your own. Different. I'm not advocating for alternative 3, because ever since the beginning, I wasn't for that. I didn't want a full consolidation. My preference was always alternative 2, was to have 2 separate transit agencies, but at the same time have one universal paratransit service so that our people with disabilities can get from one side to the other side effortlessly. I understand the concerns, I really do. But I also see the huge benefits of being able to have 2 separate agencies working together in their regions and communicating with each other on both sides. There was a comment made that, well, we're going to lose a voice. For years, even before I probably was even born, Gold Coast was a JPA, sorry. And they had a representative from every single city that was part of the system. And they continue to have that same thing. And I can honestly say, as a resident of Oxnard, I have not had any complaints about a lack of representation for my transit needs. Every single voice on that board is the exact same like ours. We are all equal with our voices. We are all equal with our votes. And I believe that if it is set up correctly, that it will continue to be one voice representing the community as a whole. I feel like if we don't, Ms. Grassley, let me ask, if we make a recommendation saying we move staff's recommendation forward, do we have the authority to force the providers to go with our recommendation, or is it just a recommendation?
Correct, it is just a recommendation. VCTC could not enforce anything and wouldn't enforce anything. We, we have that statement in the staff report and in here that it is non-binding. And regarding alternative two, we do recognize that there is more study that is needed. This doesn't commit any of those cities to actually join a JPA or to join Gold Coast Transit District because all of that needs to be negotiated and further study. This commits us to working on those studies to continue investigating and studying alternative two before anyone of those jurisdictions makes those decisions to move forward in terms of some sort of JPA or joining Gold Coast or something of that nature.
Does the commission's recommendation vote today forces anybody to start the process tomorrow? That we have to start consolidation and that it starts tomorrow?
All alternative two options don't begin until for 5 years from now. So certainly nothing related to consolidation would happen tomorrow. And strategies related to alternative one in terms of integration would begin in the near term. The ones that are outlined for the 2024 year would begin in the near term. And we can't enforce anyone to even support those strategies within their own agencies, but of course VCTC staff would be committed to them.
I appreciate that. And I'll just finally say that today's decision that the commission makes does not bind any city council to this decision. This is just saying that VCTC, as an agency of understanding the needs of our county, is committed to providing a full range of mobility to every single resident of our county. Thank you, Chair.
And Commissioner Guerrero, before I go to you, I'm going to make just a couple comments to expand on Commissioner Chavez's comments. Gold Coast, when it moved from a JPA to a state-recognized transit agency, used their enabling legislation. They crafted the enabling legislation to allow any other city or entity within Ventura County to join our district and have a seat on our board and have a voice in our service we provide. We reached out to all the local communities. Some chose to not participate at this point, but there's always an opportunity in the future where Gold Coast can go back, and let's say Moore Park reaches out to Gold Coast, said, we would like to join your transit district, then we can have a process that would bring them in, provide them a voting member seat on our board, and we can start doing transportation services to them. Now, realistically, if we wanted to combine the whole county, having everything run out of Oxnard would probably not work for Gold Coast. It would require a second facility in Simi Valley to have equipment, employees, and everything up in that area, but it would still be under the umbrella of the Gold Coast operation. So that's a possibility for the future, but some cities weren't ready for it at this time. We didn't want to be the gorilla in the closet and say, we're coming in and taking over everything. We wanted every city to willingly be a partner or a participant or not. It was up to them. But there is an option and a mechanism out there that would allow that. So that's just one other thing. I know Commissioner Judge talked about one county-wide system. There's an option that's available should we decide to go down that road at a later time. So, and with that, Commissioner Guerrero.
Yeah, thank you. Although it's not one of the enumerated alternatives, 1, 2, or 3, I'm told that there was some discussion, maybe by Ty or at the staff level, about possibly just looking at paratransit consolidation for a couple reasons. One, it might provide, as I come up, microcosm of the bigger challenges, an opportunity as a kind of a proof of concept to see whether we want to feel comfortable going to the next level of full consolidation under one company and fixed transit. And then also because it's probably, as I've seen and in the feedback I've received, it has more stovepiped, than just about any other service that's countywide, in that the communication from region to region just doesn't happen. So the example that I use is somebody that wants to go from Camarillo to Moore Park to Thousand Oaks and then back home to Camarillo can't do that. We can here, at the board, but if somebody's dependent on paratransit, they have to go from Camarillo to Moore Park, back to Camarillo, and then from Camarillo to Thousand Oaks. then back to Camarillo, just because of the stovepipe system that's currently set up. Prices are different in every city. Age restrictions are different in every city. It's really could be possibly a very good pilot to see how well we can do this. I know I can hear the apprehension. I hear it from the cities that I represent, from Thousand Oaks, from Camarillo, about consolidation. And so hearing that and feeling that and understanding that myself, I'm hesitant to do much more today than support alternative one. But I am very passionate about a countywide consolidation of paratransit. And I would strongly support that if that was something that the staff had looked at and would make a recommendation as to if it was separate from two. I served as a board member for 6-7 years for Sacramento Paratransit, countywide, fully integrated, wonderful system. Not perfect like any system, but does a great job providing reliability and transparency and just customer friendliness. So anyhow, that's kind of where I am, and I just want to, but I also kind of glossed over my question. Was there consideration given to consolidation of paratransit countywide as kind of a test of efficacy?
So, consolidation of paratransit is included in alternative two, but we certainly heard from the commission at the February meeting and understand from the operators in general that there is more appetite to look at paratransit consolidation rather than fixed route. Fixed route is a bit more complicated. Also, as part of the coordinated plan, increased regional paratransit trips is one of the strategies in there as well. So in light of all of that, that's why VCTC applied for the REAP grant funding for a countywide paratransit integration study analysis. And so you'll see that in the next item to be awarded. So we got a head start on all of that because we know that it is a priority for many people. So that is the study of that is moving forward, though the alternative, the actual strategy is included in alternative two.
Given that, would it make more sense to wait for the response to that study before evaluating two or higher on the recommendations of alternatives, since that will illuminate what we need to do to consolidate and maybe provide more information as commission?
There are a number of other strategies and alternatives within Alternative 2 that are more related to fixed route that aren't dependent on the study. That item could be taken out. I mean, that's why we separated the timeline of Alternative 2 out with the paratransit items earlier on in the years. So, the Alternative 2 implementation begins 5 years out, and paratransit strategies are earlier on in those 5 years, and then more complicated fixed route strategies are a little bit further on in the implementation timeline, since we had heard from the East County cities that they had more apprehension related to those.
Yeah, okay, thank you. And then just to wrap up is if there were an interest in taking the paratransit consolidation out of two and not commingling it with fixed route and creating it either a standalone alternative or to integrate it into alternative one, does that create any issues related to implementation, funding, process that would send a red flag up by you or any other member of the staff?
It doesn't create any sort of issues for our staff. We know that it's more complicated than the rest of these strategies in Alternative 1, and that it is consolidation as opposed to integration, and that's why it's an Alternative 2, but it would not be a problem for staff to move it into Alternative 1. Of course, I can't speak for the cities and the operators, but it would not present any sort of issues for us.
Thank you. Appreciate it, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Any other comments for staff? Commissioner Lopez. Oh, Commissioner. Oh, okay. Well, you wave and he picks up the mic, so I'm not sure what's going on at that end of the dais.
We're working together down here.
It's good.
And I appreciate my colleagues that talk about whether or not this requires cities, anything we do today requires cities to do it. I understand that we are not required. Of course, we can't speak for our cities to that depth right now. However, just from what I hear from our city so far, I can tell you that, as things work now, we would be in opposition moving forward until we get a comfort level that these things actually can happen and that the financial risks and impacts to our city are acceptable. But in terms of the alternate idea that my colleague has put out, to help us pursue some of these ideas, I think a lot of these ideas are part of the strategies that we have listed in our document. Those we really should get settled down quickly and work toward this consolidation that I agree, if we could do a county-wide consolidation, that'd be wonderful. We can't get there yet. If we were to maybe try and I'll call this a pilot program of a more consolidated approach to our dial-a-ride and that sort of response, that might be a way to help us move forward. But I think the alternative to the alternative idea that was posited just now may be a way we can go. But at most, I think we can look at an alternative to our number one, because right now I don't think there's a comfort level coming from our city to really go forward.
Thank you. First of all, Ms. Grassi, thank you for the tremendous amount of work that has gone into this, especially doing all the outreach, going to the city councils, engaging in a lot of these conversations that there's definitely some hesitation, and I hear that. But, at the end of the day, as Commissioner Johnson, Commissioner Chavez, mentioned, at the end of the day, this is about the consumers and the users of our transit system here in Ventura County. And I will say that I am definitely in a position of privilege because I have a car, I can get myself around, but there are people who don't have that privilege, and they really have to rely on our public transportation system. And that's who we need to keep in mind as we're making a decision. And I do agree with the staff recommendation to start with alternative 1 and getting to alternative 2, but what I'm concerned about is the amount of time we wait until we even begin that process to alternative 2. So I think, as Commissioner Gurrell mentioned, the alternative of a pilot, just reiterating that, I think, and with Commissioner Engler coming from Thousand Oaks and seeing that maybe this is a way that we can start to approach alternative 2 in a different way that would allow for other cities to buy into a 2 system, or in the future a countywide system. So if there is a way to begin the process before 2028, I think that would be ideal, because otherwise what I'm concerned about is that this is just going to fall off and then we're not moving forward. So I just wanted to mention that I do support this and would like to see this move forward, keeping in mind the users and consumers of our public transportation system. Thank you.
Of course, I'll just say there's nothing that precludes us from doing the more in-depth analysis for alternatives 2 earlier. We've just kind of spaced it out, knowing how many strategies there are, but there's nothing that precludes us from starting things like the financial working groups or further study for alternatives 2 sooner if there's an appetite to do so.
Any other comment? Commissioner Parvin.
Thank you. Is it on? It's working. Okay. I really appreciate everything everyone's saying. I feel like we've been here before, a few years back. Feels very similar, where the smaller cities that really need to keep their streets and roads money are Camarillo and Moore Park. We can't bring everyone together until we start talking about those things as well, the money, the funding, and those that need us the most, right? I agree that the paratransit is really crucial, and I think we probably all do here. I think I got sort of a quorum listening to everyone, but not sure. But at the same time, I wouldn't mind another sort of perhaps a retreat again, to go over this again, go back to our cities and our communities and try it again, because we could make progress on what you're recommending. We could actually make progress. Otherwise, we're going to look like, we'll be talking like this 5 years from now. I won't be here probably. But we'll be right here where we were before. So it'd be great to make some progress on it.
I just, a point of clarification that for any East County cities joining JPA, they wouldn't lose their streets and roads money if the JPA decides that it would be up to the JPA, and VCTC wouldn't be making those recommendations. It's only going to Gold Coast that those provisions are in place.
Okay, Commissioner Long. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I think it's a matter of trust. I think that's what it comes down to, a feeling of trust. So we need to start there. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Long.
Thank you. We have great concerns of funding for roads. We have that in many of the cities that are in my district, and when you drive around it, you understand the pain of the residents just to get around. The Santa Paula branch line, or for our Heritage Valley Transportation Bureau, does work efficiently. I do have to say, we have cities and county work together on transit for communities and how much money goes in. So I do want to say that that is a working way of doing it, and they're also able to get their road money. So I don't think that it can't happen. I think it's an evolution that the conversation needs to be brought together. And I agree with the city council members that that option needs to be discussed. Are you looking at that? And I want to ensure that their funding for the roads do not get taken away. I do like the presentation stating constituents. How do we move constituents? And then we figure out the dollars. But I do think this is a good conversation and would like to move things forward sooner than later. But you do have to bring along all of the city managers and the council members to understand what their hesitations are and how do we get around it. I think there's opportunities for that so that we can all work together on it. I like having the para doing that global for Ventura County all as a whole. I think that will show you some of where our weaknesses are, and that we can approach that to all the other items as well. So just food for thought. Thank you.
Any other? Commissioner Johnson.
Thank you. I want to point out that what we're looking at here is already a revision of our ties based on the feedback we had from other cities. And I certainly appreciate the trepidation that some cities feel. What I would like to point out, though, is that this talk about we need to talk with cities, we need to figure out the financial models. If we just go with alternative one, we're not doing that. That's what happens in alternative two. If we go with alternative one, that discussion, we are telling VCTC, we are telling the staff, just to assume that it's not going to happen. So alternative two, we do the discussions, we figure out the finances, we talk about, we get into depth about, how a JPA might work, and different agencies can talk with each other about what they would like to see in a JPA. And at the end of the day, if it doesn't work for them, if after all this discussion and all these studies, it doesn't work for them, there will be nothing forcing them to join it. But for all the talk about moving forward and looking at this, the only way to do that is to go with staff's recommendation. Otherwise, if we go with one, we're just closing the door on it. There will not be that further discussion. Chair, is a motion in order at this point?
I think I have one more comment waiting to be heard.
Thank you.
Commissioner Crosswhite.
I would request that if we were, I know that by nature it has been said that option number 2, your jurisdiction could opt not to join. I would feel more comfortable if it specifically said adoption of alternative 1 and continued study of the implementation of option 2. And even if it's supposedly implied, I would feel much more comfortable with that as the direction. Because otherwise it sort of feels like, okay, we've committed, and it just feels fundamentally different, even if semantically it's similar, if that makes sense.
Sure. And actually, option 1, if staff's recommendation is followed, option 1 would be implemented, and then option 2 would come about 4 or 5 years later in part of that. But this commission always has the ability to go back later on and say, this isn't working, and we're going to trash the whole thing. That, it's by voting today and moving it forward does not commit our future commissioners to continuing that path of travel. Should this commission decide later on it's not working, let's just go back and do something else, the commission will have that option. That's just food for thought. Go ahead.
Turn my mic off. If I might just suggest whichever option the commission determines VCTC will commit to, and we will anyway report back, certainly within 12 months, with an update of where we stand. And at that time, the commission could make further direction or redirection. But I just want to emphasize and thank Claire and her team and all the city managers who we met with, staff, all the cities. This is based on incremental progress over time where we're hopefully, and I think we have been, certainly since the pandemic started, bringing everyone along together despite I think the myriad challenges that transit is facing overall.
Thank you. And Commissioner Johnson, you asked if a motion would be in order. I think the response would be yes.
Thank you, Chair. I'm going to move alternative 2 with a slight modification. And so alternative 2, moderate consolidation, it would say countywide paratransit consolidation, study of sub-regional fixed route consolidation, and then the other bullet point would just stay as it is, the consolidation of all demand response operations into a new countywide agency.
Second.
So the change would be not say countywide sub-regional fixed route consolidation, but study of countywide.
Okay. Commissioner Long.
On alternate 1, it says consolidate East County Demand Response Services into ECTA, a new formalized organization. And then alternate 2 says that same one, except it says that all other services being consolidated with Gold Coast Transit District. Why do we have 2 different options?
Under alternative 1 versus alternative 2?
Yes.
So it includes all of the operators in alternative 2. And then in alternative 1 only includes the East County demand response.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that people knew the clarification.
Okay, we do have a motion on the floor and an active second. Commissioner Crosswhite.
Can I get clarification on what the motion is?
I was going to ask him to repeat the motion just so we're all on the same page.
Thank you.
Chair, if I can ask for clarification as far as the timeline in that motion, because alternative 2 was to begin in 2028, so just wanted to bring that up to Commissioner Johnson since he made the motion.
Commissioner Brogan, did you have anything?
Yeah, at this point, I'm confused, and especially when we're changing some of the options to a degree. I'm not comfortable casting a vote on any of the three at this point in time without conferring with the rest of my council in Fillmore. I mean, Fillmore relies so heavily upon different modes of transportation, and I don't want to lock Fillmore into something and then have to then explain, well, this is, the way VCTC went with it. It's going to have a completely different impact, I think, on the 126 corridor versus the other cities in the county, and just my 2 cents. If it gets to a vote, I'll abstain. Yeah.
I'm going to ask Commissioner Johnson to restate his motion with the comments, see if we can get to some point where we're all on the same page.
Thank you. So alternative 2, I don't know if people have it in front of them. It currently has 2 bullet points. The first bullet point says countywide paratransit and sub-regional fixed route consolidation. I would split that bullet point into 2 bullet points to say countywide paratransit consolidation and study of sub-regional fixed route consolidation. That would direct VCTC to begin the study looking at what it would mean to have an East County Transit Agency for fixed routes. I would not change the timeline. I understand the desire to move more quickly on this, but there's also a strong desire among my commissioners to move very slowly, and so I would stick with the 5 years. And I think it's more likely to be successful if we take the time and do it right, and nobody feels that the process has been rushed. The other bullet point under alternative 2 would remain the same. That is consolidation of all demand response, paratransit, and dial ride operations into a new countywide agency. Consolidation of fixed route operations by geography with Simi Valley, Thousand Oaks, Moore Park, and VCTC East County route becoming an East County Transit Agency, and all other services being consolidated with Gold Coast Transit. Commissioner Crosswhite, you still have an issue, yes?
Yes, Commissioner
All
Crosswhite.
right, so I'm just going to state for sort of the record that I could support alternative 1 with a study of the entirety of alternative 2, but the way that this is still written, it would be suggesting that I supported automatically our service going to Gold Coast, and I can't do that without more study. But it would suggest, I know you're saying that it doesn't, we could still say no, but it suggests that I support that if I were to vote for option 2.
Well, I appreciate that. I will, if you would like to make a different motion, I will withdraw mine. Well, I'd rather withdraw the motion and have a fresh motion made.
For a point of clarification, in the study, it says this is what is presumed. So even within alternative 3, it assumes Gold Coast, but it could theoretically be VCTC. So within the study itself, it does allow for changes of that nature within the ties document, if that helps at all, but certainly.
All right, let me make an attempt, and you all can decide that you don't like my motion. But my motion would be that we approve the final draft transitional integration and efficiency study. We approve adoption of alternative 1 and the continued, how did I write it? The continued study of alternative 2 with the incremental implementation of alternative 1 commencing after approval. I don't know what the timeline should be for the implementation of 2, because that would be, I think, part of the study and continued conversation. That would be my motion.
Okay, let me make sure I understand where I'm at. So are you withdrawing your motion, or are you accepting a substitute motion?
I've just withdrawn it.
Okay, so we have a motion from Commissioner Crosswhite. We need a second now? I second. We have a second by Commissioner Long, comment by Commissioner Chavez.
Ms. Grassley, clearly this is being a lot more complicated than we all thought it was going to be. In alternative 2, it lists Simi, Teo, Moore Park, and VCTC East County. We're hearing concerns from Santa Paula, from Fillmore, that they would essentially have no option but to join Gold Coast. But as I can see in Alternative 2, they're not even a topic of discussion. Not saying that you guys aren't a topic of discussion, but I'm looking at Alternative 2, and I'm not seeing you guys listed there. So what do we say about Santa Paula and Fillmore?
Within the ties document and the report, it does state that the Heritage Valley cities would go to Gold Coast. That's what the study presumes.
Got it.
But again, that would have been over a 5-year period. So with a lot of analysis building up to that.
Okay. I just didn't see it on the staff report using them as an alternative to. I mean, I just find it humorous a little bit that we're saying that roads are not in the best shape and that people are having to drive around potholes where a good chunk of our community don't have vehicles. I mean, I'm assuming all of us arrived here today in a car. How many residents can we say in our own communities have that same luxury? So our focus, I feel, is so on how are we going to pave our roads versus how we're going to get that single mother to take our kids to medical appointments or to school.
And I apologize, we're getting a little bit far afield here, I think. We have a motion and a second on the floor.
Yeah, I'm sorry,
I'd like to
Chair.
call for a vote, please, Madam Clerk. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to surprise you there. Oh, yeah.
All right. Commissioner Broggie? Commissioner Chavez?
No.
Commissioner Crosswhite?
Yes.
Commissioner Enegren?
Yes.
Commissioner Engler?
Yes.
Commissioner Francina? Commissioner Gorel?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
No.
Commissioner Judge?
No.
Commissioner Long?
Yes.
Commissioner Lopez?
No.
Commissioner McQueen-Lejeune?
Yes.
Commissioner Parvin?
Yes.
Commissioner Broggie?
She abstained.
Oh, I'm sorry. Chair McDonald?
Yes.
And I think that is it.
Is that what you had? 8 affirmative votes?
Chair, I have a point of order for Mr. Mattis.
I'm sorry?
I have a point of order for Mr. Mattis.
Okay.
Mr. Mattis, you know, in the city of Ventura, we don't really allow somebody to abstain from a vote. Do we have a language about whether or not a commissioner can abstain from a vote?
I am looking at that right now.
Thank you.
If it's easier and more, and quicker, I can certainly change my vote to no.
So no to the alternate one with the study?
I'm sorry?
No to the alternate one with the study? Or- That's interesting. this is government.
An abstention would not be prohibited here, so an abstention is fine, and it appears you have a majority vote. I'm just looking at whether there's any supermajority.
So how about those Dodgers?
So Chair McDonald, it appears the motion passes with the majority.
Okay, thank you very much. Sure. Commissioner Grell would like to ask a follow-up question.
Yeah, thank you. I didn't want to muddle or muddy the motion with the suggestion I was going to make, and maybe a follow-on, just direction possibly to staff. But the idea of studying number 2, which is the language that we had adopted, doesn't really give a timeline by which we would understand more about number 2. And it doesn't really give a timeline. And so maybe if staff could talk a little bit about that, because I'm coming back to the issue that I'm passionate about that's buried in number 2, and that is a consolidation of paratransit countywide. And the reason why I bring it back up is that I got a sense from the deliberations and discussions that there was more of an interest in seeing kind of feedback on that and a pathway on that, and that the apprehension of a larger scale integration, consolidation with fixed routes, et cetera, headquarters, was really bogging us down. I felt like, and I might be wrong, there was more interest in the commission to hear back earlier and faster how we can get to a world that puts everyone in their comfort zone, all the cities, of consolidated paratransit. I don't know that I need to make a motion. I don't know that I can make a motion, but I wanted to try to drive home the idea that may be, I'd like to see that kind of feedback come back to this commission in a more expedited way than just a general study alternative to and get back to us. Leaves that too much in the open.
Would you be okay with that coming back at the next meeting if they can put it together?
If they can put it together, I don't want to direct that. I feel like the staff is swamped, but it would mean a lot. I think that I'm passionate about it. I heard that other folks were interested in it. I don't know that it would necessarily take the study and the time that's required of the fixed routes as we all go back and discuss with the stakeholders and the districts that we represent, et cetera. And I would just like to see that, Mr. Chair, come back faster. And
Well, maybe even the next item, because we do have, as part of the SRTP, an option to exercise a study of further paratransit integration. So luckily, you guys provided good feedback at the February meeting, and we knew that there was appetite for that. So I think we certainly can do all of those paratransit-related items much more quickly and are in the process of doing so.
yeah, thank you, because to integrate it into all of the things that exist in an alternative to, and to bring them back as a group may take longer than if it was just simply pulled out and brought back separately.
Well, it sounds like this might be a perfect lead-in to item number 14. So
The final item.
I will suggest that we move to item number 14 and discuss the fiscal year 2025 to 2034 short-range transit plan update contract award. And Aubrey Smith, your show, sir.
Thank you. Can you all hear me? Good. Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Aubrey Smith. I am the Program Manager of Regional Transit Planning at VCTC. Today I'm going to present an overview of the short-range transit plan update, the procurement process, and the ultimate recommendation for contract award. So what is a short-range transit plan, or referred to as an SRTP? SRTP serves as a roadmap, most commonly over a 10-year period, that guides the transit agency's actions and investments based on goals, strategies, and priorities. As part of the SRTP process, a transit system's fleet needs, capital and operating costs and revenues, and existing transit services or projects are assessed with recommendations made to make services more efficient and effective for transit users. Just a little bit of background regarding the SRTP at VCTC. The last SRTP was developed in 2015 and provided strategies to improve regional coordination and connectivity. As we all know, and obvious, that there have been many significant events since 2015 that have impacted the transit service landscape. So this SRTP, the new SRTP that we brought today for approval for award, will be assessing things through a equitable and accessible lens while looking at and accounting for the impacts that the COVID-19 pandemic has made upon ridership and transit agencies' cost overall. So the SRTP's framework will be based on VCTC's strategic plan, as well as other relevant planning documents such as the TIES, Coordinated Plan, the Transportation Emergency Preparedness Plan, the Comprehensive Transportation Plan, and other relevant studies that VCTC and its operators have currently or previously adopted or developed. The SRTP will analyze current service, such as fixed route bus, Dial-A-Ride, microtransit, paratransit, and rail service for all operators within Ventura County, with the exception of Gold Coast Transit District, as they are currently developing their own SRTP. But we have already been in discussion with Gold Coast staff, and we'll be incorporating their recommendations and analysis into our SRTP to ensure consistency among the two agencies and their documents. And as Claire just presented on the previous item in the robust discussion, there is a task contained within the SRTP that will look at paratransit integration analysis, and will follow up on the recommendations highlighted today, as well as in the coordinated plan. Just want to provide an overview of the evaluation process for the procurement. We notified 7 firms, as an error on the slide, the opportunity to submit an RFP. We did only receive 1 proposal. So as standard practice, we reached out to all the non-bidders to find out why they did not submit a proposal. And the responses consisted of other project commitments during the RFP process. They couldn't allocate staff to put together a proposal. A couple firms said they were unfamiliar with Ventura County. And so VCTC, in addition to that feedback, reviewed the scope of work and feedback just to assess whether there was any constraints that would have caused proposals not to submit that were within our control. But we determined that the lack of proposals were not within our control, so we were comfortable moving forward with the single bid and evaluating their cost proposal. And just to highlight the project team's qualifications experience, even though it was a single bid, this firm is widely recognized within the transit industry, not just for service planning, but for also transportation engineering. They have an extensive track record with working on SRTPs within the Southern California region, and they've developed a strong relationship working on the TIES study. Their subconsultant, AMA Transit Planning, is an expert in the industry focused on community engagement as well as a specialization in paratransit. And this next slide, I'm just going to be briefly going over the tasks contained within the SRTP. So task 1 is the project management that speaks to meeting frequencies and reporting requirements to ensure that the schedule and budget for this project stays on task and within budget. Task 2 speaks to existing conditions, so it will provide an overview of the transit services within Ventura County, as well as the market, demographics, travel patterns, et cetera. Task 3 is probably the most robust task within this SRTP. It contains subtasks pertaining to focus groups, community workshops. We're going to be doing community workshops within each city, as well as online surveys, onboard surveys for each operator. So it will be a really extensive stakeholder engagement effort. Task 4 is the service evaluation, where we will be evaluating each operator's service, looking at productivity, on-time performance, and things of that nature. Task 5 is a service plan development. So after we've assessed the existing services, as well as reviewing the current market assessments, the consultant will be developing a service plans for each operator based on 4 different scenarios tied to funding. Task 6 is a capital plan, which will basically inventory and outline all the capital needs from each agency now and then projected into the future. Task 7 will be looking at current and projected revenue and costs for each agency. Task 8 is a community engagement and partnerships plan. That will be evaluating how VCTC and its operators engage the community and what improvements we can make. Task 9 is a fare evaluation. We'll be looking at the fare structure and policies of each operator to see whether the current fare structures are working for each system, whether things need to be adjusted, and to also try to make a more seamless fare system or network across the county to ultimately make it easier for passengers to plan and pay for trips. Task 10 is the countywide paratransit integration analysis. This task will be actually answering all the questions that were raised today. It will include stakeholder engagement, so not just local officials, but also the community to get their feedback. We'll be working with disability advocacy groups, as well as obviously operators and elected officials. We will be conducting a cost-benefit analysis, an implementation plan, as well as a financial plan will be part of this Task 10, so it will be pretty comprehensive and detailed. We are tentatively, I don't want to finalize this, but we are looking, at least for completion, it would be sometime in summer 2024. Now that may get adjusted based on today's discussion and working with Claire and our consultant to see what we can do to potentially expedite that, but that will be a major component of the SRTP, and that's also funded by SCAG's Regional Early Action Plan grant program. Task 11 is the final short-range transit plan, so it's really just compiling all the different tasks into chapters within the SRTP. And then ultimately, depending on how the SRTP shapes out, implementation. So with that, staff recommends the approval award of a contract for the development of the SRTP to Fair and Pierce for a not to exceed amount of $714,933, as well as authorize the executive director to negotiate all remaining terms of the contract for the SRTP update in a form and substance approved by VCTC Legal Counsel. And with that, I'll take any questions.
Okay, any questions for Mr. Smith? Seeing none, I would move the recommended action.
Second.
We have a second by Commissioner Gorell. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Broggie? Yes. Commissioner Chavez?
Aye.
Commissioner Crosswhite?
Yes.
Commissioner Enegren?
Yes.
Commissioner Engler?
Yes.
Commissioner Francina?
Yes.
Commissioner Gorell?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Judge?
Yes.
Commissioner Long?
Yes.
Commissioner Lopez?
Yes.
Commissioner McQueen-Lejeune?
Yes.
Commissioner Parvin? Chair Judge? I'm so sorry.
Yes.
Chair McDonald? My
He
apologies.
says yes.
My apologies, Chair McDonald. Thank
Okay.
you.
General Counsel reports. And I can imagine your report will be one word.
Nothing then.
Agency reports, Southern California Regional Rail or Southern California Association of Governments. Commissioner Judge.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We had our Transportation Committee and Regional Council meeting yesterday. Glad you got to make use of some of those grants from SCAG. I'm hoping there's lots more money out there, so keep applying if you have projects, especially those bike lane projects. A lot of the Go Human stuff is coming down, so get those applications in because they got lots of money to give out to different entities. Also, the big thing I saw, that one of the things that jumped out at me was I had three meetings Wednesday and Thursday. I had the executive committee, I had the transportation committee, and I had the regional council. All three of those agendas include on them in a review part of the agenda the road use tax, or the coming change from the state of California. I would suggest, what I'm going to do is make a copy of that and make sure every committee member gets it, because it's very important to see what the plans are, what they're trying to do. Obviously, you know that all our roads and transportation entities are financed by our gas tax. Well, with the EVs and zero-emission vehicles and stuff, there is no gas tax. So the state is looking at a huge deficit in funding for those projects because of the lack of the gas tax. So they're going to change to a use tax, a use of the roads. That'll be coming soon. So I'll make sure I get a copy in everybody's hands so you can read this. It's pretty comprehensive. That's about it.
Okay, thank you very much. Metrolink, Commissioner Chavez.
Just real quick, good news. Metrolink had its last free fare event this month for Clean Air Day. They saw a huge increase in ridership, which is a benefit since we're trying to recapture our riders back on Metrolink system, since a lot more companies are going more remote. And starting on Monday, the Student Adventure Pass will be active. So students will be able to go to all the different universities using Metrolink and on a more student-friendly transit pass, so that they can get on the train and connect with local transit systems. All you would need is your student ID and student email to sign up and download the Metrolink app. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. The only thing to report on LoSAN is our managing director will be at our next commission meeting here to give an update on LoSAN, so it should be pretty interesting. And Coastal Rail Coordinating Council, there is no report. CalCog.
Thank you, Chair. You know, not a lot to report, but CalCog did support SB 825. That was authored by Monique Limon. I think it was mentioned in our legislative packet, and everybody's glad now that the governor signed it into law. What's interesting, and the reason I'm bringing it up is because what SB 825 does is it allows, for example, agencies like VCTC to get broadband funding from the PUC. And so I just thought that was a fun little tie-in with our earlier discussion. Thank you, Chair.
Do you have anything for California Van Pool Authority?
No, I did not know that Commissioner White was not going to be here, so I didn't prepare.
Okay,
Thanks.
cool. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll be stepping into closed session. Mr. Mattis, do you have any kind of announcement for that?
No, there is no announcement prior to the closed session.
Okay, and if appropriate, we will report out when we come back.
Correct.
So thank you all. We'll be back in a little bit.